የምርጫ ውድድሮች የምርጫ ንግግሮችን ስንመለከት ደግሞ የራሳቸው የሆኑ መርሆችን ይዘው ነው የሚመጡትና አንድምታው ላይ የሚጨምሩት ነገር በርካታ እንደሆነ ይታሰባል። በተለይ ደግሞ የምርጫ መርሆችን ስናነሳ ፍትሃዊና ቀጠናዊ የሆኑ ሂደቶችን ያካተተ ነው። 21 ላይ ይመስለኛል እንደ አውሮፓውያኑ አቆጣጠር በበለጠ ይህ ጉዳይ በተዟዟረ መልኩ ቀጠናዊ በሆነ መልኩ የምርጫ ንግግሮች ሁነቶች ይካሄዱበት የሚለው ሐሳብ በደንብ እየጨመረ የመጣው አሁን ላይ ስናነሳ የዚህኛውን ምርጫ በምስራቅ አፍሪካ በቼርፐርሰንነት ወይም ደግሞ በመምራት ረገድ የኮሚሽኑን ማለት ነው ከምስራቅ አፍሪካ ይሆናል። ነገር ግን የኮሚሽኑ ስራ አስፈጻሚው አጠቃላይ ቦርድ ውስጥ ያሉት ደግሞ በምክትል ረገድ ወደ ሰሜን አፍሪካ የሚሄድ እንዲሁም ደግሞ በተለያዩ ቀጠናዎች ውስጥ ያሉ እንዲካተቱ ይደረጋል። ስለዚህ ይሄ አፍሪካውያን በራሳቸው ጉዳይ ላይ እንዲነጋገሩና እንዲወያዩ ቀጠናዊ ውክልናም በኋላ ላይ ሄዶ የአፍሪካን ውህደት ሊፈጥር የሚችለው ቀጠናዊ የሆኑ ግንኙነቶች፣ ቀጠናዊ ውይይቶች፣ ቀጠናዊ ትብብሮችና የመሰረተ ልማት ግንባታዎች ስለሚሆኑ እነዚህ ሂደቶችን ለማፋጠን ትልቅ እድል እንደሚሰጥ የሚታመን ነውና ከዛው ጋር አብረን ልናነሳ የምንችለው በተለይ በጾታ አካታችነት የተሰጠው እድል እዚህ ኮሚሽነር ምርጫ ላይ ስናነሳ ከጾታ ጋር የተገናኙ ጉዳዮችም እንደዚሁ የምናነሳው ነው። አሁን ደግሞ ዛሬ ልናስተላልፍ እየተዘጋጀን እንዳለነው በቀጥታ ስርጭት የሚደረጉ ንግግሮችና ውይይቶች አንድ አፍሪካውያን የአፍሪካ የአህጉሪቱ ዜጎች በጉዳዩ ላይ የባለቤትነት ስሜትን ይፈጥራል። ይገባኛል፣ ስለ አፍሪካ ማወቅ አለብኝ፣ መነጋገር አለብን፣ መወሰን አለብን በጋራ በቀጣይ 8 አመታት ወይም ደግሞ 4 አመታት በሁለት ምርጫ ጊዜ ሊመራን የሚገባው ሰው ማን ነው? ምን አይነት ጉዳይ ይዞ ነው? ለምንስ ተመረጠ? የሚሉ ጉዳዮችን በባለቤትነት እንድናቅ እድል የሚፈጥርልን ነው የሚሆነው። ከዛ ባሻገር ዲሞክራሲን በማሳደግ ረገድም ትልቅ የሆነ አንድምታ እንደሚኖረው የሚታመን ነው። ግልጽ የሆነ ተጠያቂ የሆነ አመራርን በአፍሪካ የኮሚሽን ሊቀመንበርነት ደረጃ ለማምጣትም ትልቅ የሆነ አቅም የሚሰጥ ነው። ሰለሞን እንግዲህ ወደ አነሳው ጥያቄ ልመለስ። የተወሰኑ አንድምታዎቹን በመመልኩ እናያቸዋለን።
በነገራችን ላይ ሄድ መለስ እንላለን እንጂ አንድምታዎቹን መነካካታችን አይቀርም።
በትክክል
ባንዴ አንስተን የምንተው ጉዳይ አይደለም።
እንግዲህ እድለኝነትም ጭምር ነው። የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን በነገራችን ላይ ባለፉት በርካታ አመታት ስናነሳ በተለያዩ ዘርፎች በሬዲዮ ወደ 90 አመቱ ተቆጥሯል። ቀደም ሲልም ሰለሞን ሲያነሳለን እንደነበረው ከአፍሪካ ኅብረት ከያንዳንዷ የአፍሪካ ኅብረት እንቅስቃሴ ጀርባ የነበረው የኢትዮጵያ ሬዲዮ ነው። በፓን አፍሪካኒዝም ቀደም ሲል ለማንሳት ሞክሬያለሁ በተወሰነ መልኩ ያኔ እንግዲህ አፍሪካውያን በነጮች አገዛዝ ውስጥ በወደቁበት ሰዓት እንዲነሱ በማድረግ የፓን አፍሪካኒዝም እንቅስቃሴ እንዲቀጣጠል በማድረግ መጨረሻው የአፍሪካ ሀገር እንግዲህ 1990ዎቹ ላይ እንደ አውሮፓውያኑ አቆጣጠር ነው ነፃ የወጣው እንደምናውቀው አይደለ
60ዎቹ
የመጨረሻዋ በቀኝ ግዛት የተያዙ የሀገራት ውስጥ 1990 ላይ ነው እንደ አውሮፓውያኑ አቆጣጠር ነፃ መውጣት የቻሉት ማለት ነው። የመጨረሻው የአፍሪካን ሀገር ስናይ እንደተባለው ከ13 በኋላ በርካታ ሀገራት ነፃ የወጡ ቆይተዋል። በእነዚህ ሂደት ውስጥ ሁሉ የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን አንዱ አካል የነበረው የኢትዮጵያ ብሔራዊ ሬዲዮ ትልቅ የሆነ አስተዋጽኦ ሲያደርግ የነበረ ምሁራንን እያናገረ አፍሪካ ራሷን በምን መልኩ ማውጣት ትችላለች፣ በምን መልኩ መምራት ይገባታል፣ መጻኢ የአፍሪካ ጣፈንታ እንዴት ሊሆን ይገባል የሚለውን ሁሉ ትኩረት ሰጥቶ ሲሰራ የቆየ ነው። በኋላ ደግሞ የኦኤዩ ወይም ደግሞ የአፍሪካ አንድነት ድርጅት ምስረታ ጋር ስንመጣ የኢትዮጵያ ቴሌቪዥንንም አብረን እናገኘዋለን። የመጀመሪያውን ጉባኤ እጅግ በሚገርም መልኩ ያስተላለፈ በጥቁርና በነጭ ጥርት ባለ ባይሆን ራሱ የመጀመሪያው ከዛ ባለፈ የመጀመሪያው በአፍሪካ ደረጃ ልታነሳለት የሚችለው የሬዲዮና የቴሌቪዥን ጣቢያ አድርገህ የምትቆጥረው ግዙፍ የሆነ አንጋፋ እድሜ ያስቆጠረ ጣቢያ ነው።
32 አባል ሀገራት ምስረታውን ሲመሰርቱ ኢቢሲ ነበር ያበሰረው የአፍሪካ ድምጽ መሆን የቻለ ለአፍሪካውያን ብቻ ሳይሆን እስከ ካሪቢያን አባል ሀገራት ድረስ የፓን አፍሪካኒዝም እንቅስቃሴ በጣም የተሻገረ ስለነበረ ደቡብ አሜሪካ ሀገራትን ሳይቀር ድረስ እነ ባሃማስ፣ እነ ፔሩ፣ ብራዚልና ከዛ በታች ያሉ ሀገራትን ሳይቀር የደረሰ ነው። የፓን አፍሪካኒዝም እንቅስቃሴ ሲነሳ ያው አብዛኛው የአፍሪካ ሀገራት በኢኮኖሚ ነፃ መውጣት አለባቸው፣ በፖለቲካ መውጣት አለባቸው፣ ደግሞ ሁሉም ጥቁር ህዝቦች ለጋራ አፍሪካ መስራት አለባቸው የሚል ጽንሰ ሀሳብ ነው። ያንን ሲያቀነቅን የቆየ ነው። ዶክተር ወደ አንተ ልምጣ እስኪ። እንግዲህ ዛሬ የመጨረሻዎቹ እጩዎች የምርጫ ቅስቀሳቸውን የሚያደርጉበት ቀን ነው። ምናልባትም ከአንድ ሰዓት ምናምን በኋላ በቀጥታ ስርጭትም የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን በሁሉም አማራጮቹ የሚያስተላልፈውን ሁነት እንከታተላለን። 2063 የሚል አጀንዳ አለው የአፍሪካ አህጉር እንደምታውቀው በጆሃንስበርግ ዩኒቨርሲቲ እና በሌሎችም ዩኒቨርሲቲዎች እየተዟዟርክ እንደምታስተምረው የአፍሪካን ጉዳይ ቀዳሚ አድርገህ እንደምትሰጠው እንዳንድ ተመራማሪ የ2063ን አጀንዳ በተለይ ዲሞክራሲን በማበርታት ረገድ አንደኛውን ክንፍ እስኪናንሰው ወይ ደግሞ በኢኮኖሚ በመተሳሰር ረገድ ነፃና ቀጥተኛ ምርጫ በማድረግ ረገድ ወይ ደግሞ የዲሞክራሲ ልምምድ በአህጉሩ ሀገራት መካከል እንዲመጣ በማድረግ ረገድ ሊኖር የሚችለውን አስተዋጽኦ ንገረን እስኪ።
well thank you ሰለሞን እንደገና ከዚህ ከ2063 በፊት ማየት ያለብን መሰረታዊ ሰነዶች አሉ የላጎስ ፕላን ኦፍ አክሽን እና አቡጃ ትሪቲ የሚባሉት ላጎስ ፕላን ኦፍ አክሽን በፊት አፍሪካን ዩኒየን ኦኤዩ በነበረበት ዘመን ይወጣ ነው ሁለቱም በአጋጣሚ አቡጃ ትሪቲ የሚወጣው በዛን ዘመን ነው እነዚህ መሰረታዊ ሰነዶች ናቸው ለምሳሌ ያህል ኔፓድን የፈጠረልን ኒው ኢኒሺዬቲቭ ፎር አፍሪካን ዴቨሎፕመንት የሚል የዴቨሎፕመንቱን ዊንግ የሚመራው እሱ ነው አሁን ያነሳው ደግሞ አንድ የዲሞክራሲውን አቅጣጫ የሚያመለክተን እንደዚሁ ከዚህ ከአቡጃ ትሪቲ የተቀዳ ይሆንና APRM የሚባል አፍሪካን ፒር ሪቪው ሜካኒዝም የሚል እሱም ከ2002 በኋላ የመጣ ነው ስለዚህ የአፍሪካ ሀገሮች ምን ያህል ዲሞክራቲክ ሆነዋል ተሳትፏቸው ምን ይመስላል የሴቶች ተሳትፎ ቅድም ያነሳሽው እኔንም በብዙ እንትን የሚለኝ ነው የሚያሳስበኝ ነው ያለ ሴቶች ተሳትፎ ድሮ ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ አብዮቱ ግቡን አይመታም ይባል ነበር ስለዚህ ያለ ሴቶች ተሳትፎ አፍሪካ ዩኒየንም ግቡን የሚመታ አይመስለኝምና 50% እንኳን ባንደርስ 20-30% ሴቶች መሳተፍ አለባቸው ይሄ አሁን የምናየው ትንሽ ምናልባት ይታረማል ብለን እናስባለን በዚህ ቸርማንሺፕ ውስጥ ግን ኮሚሽነሮቹ ሲመጡ ግን ኢኳል ሳይዝ እንትን ቢኖራቸው ነምበር ቢኖራቸው ሁላችንም ደስተኞች እንሆናለን እንደ እንትን ይሄ ዲሞክራቲክ ፓርቲሲፔሽን ያው በአማርኛም ዲሞክራቲክ ነው ስለዚህ ለመመዱ እንዲኖር የሚያግዝ ነው ሌላው ደግሞ ትልቁ አንደኛው ዊንግ የምንለው ኢኮሶክ የሚባለው ነው የአፍሪካን ዩኒየን የመሰረተው ሲቪል ማህበራት ፕራይቬት ሲቲዝንስ እንዴት ይሳተፉ የሚል ትልቅ እንትን ነው እነዚህ ማወቅ በጣም ጠቃሚ ነው ብዬ ስለማስብ ነው ምናልባት ትንሽ ወደ በኋላ ወደ የአቡጃ ትሪቲ እና ምን እንደሚመስል ላጎስ ፕላን ኦፍ አክሽን ምንድናቸው የሚለው በደንብ መተንተን አለብን ወደዚህ ለመምጣት ግን ኢኮሶክ ሲቪል ሶሳይቲ ኢቭን ጋዜጠኞች የጋዜጠኞች ማህበራት ሊሆን ይችላል it can be workers it can be anything ቻምበር ኦፍ ኮሜርስ ሊሆን ይችላል በአፍሪካን ዩኒየን ፕሮሰስ ውስጥ እንዴት ይሳተፋል የሚል አንደኛው እንትን ነው የኢኮሶክ ሌላው ደግሞ ልንዘነጋው የማንችለው ከዚሁ ከኤዩ በኋላ ከአፍሪካን ዩኒየን በኋላ የመጣው ከአፍሪካን ኦኤዩ በኋላ የመጣው ኤዩ የመሰረተው የዚህ የፓን አፍሪካን ፓርላመንት የሚባል አለ እሱ ደግሞ የህዝቦች ቀጥታ ተመራጭነትን ልናጎናጽፍበት የምንችለው አንደኛው የዲሞክራቲክ ፕላትፎርም ነው ብዬ አስባለሁ እሱም እንደዚሁ ደግሞ ፒአርሲ የሚባል አለ ፒአርሲ ፐርማነንት ሪፕሬዘንታቲቭ ኮሚቲ ማለት ነው
በህብረቱ ቋሚ ውክልና ያላቸው
እነዚህ አምባሳደሮች ናቸው በአብዛኛው ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ የሚቀመጡ አምባሳደሮች ናቸው ይሄንን እንትን የሚሉ ሌላው የኤግዜኪቲቭ ካውንስል የምንለው አለ አሁን የነዚህ ምርጫ ነው እንጂ ምናየው እነዚህን ባክ የሚያደርጉ ብዙ ስትራክቸሮች አሉ ስለዚህ ኤግዜኪቲቭ ካውንስሉ የእያንዳንዱ ሀገር ሜምበር ስቴት ኢንክሉዲንግ ዌስተርን ሳሃራ ሚኒስትር ኦፍ ፎሬን አፌር የሚወከሉበት ነው እንግዲህ ዌስተርን ሳሃራን ጉዳይ ምናልባት በኋላ እናነሳዋለን ከሞሮኮ ጋር ያለው እንዴት አባል ሆነች ምናምን ጥያቄውን የምታነሱት ከሆነ ካላነሳችሁት ማለፍ ይችላል
በደንብ እናነሳዋለን ሁሉንም ነገር
ምናልባት
የኮሚሽነሮችንም ሚና በደንብ ስናነሳ ይዛኔ
ምናልባት እነዚህ ሁለቱ የቀሩትን ለበልና ሌላ ስፔሻላይዝድ ቴክኒካል ኮሚቴ የሚባል አለ እሱ ደግሞ በውስጡ የጁዲሻሪ የሂውመን ራይትስ ኤንድ ፒፕልስ ራይትስ የሚባል አለ አፍሪካን ዩኒየን እንግዲህ የሂውመን ራይትን ያየበት አቅጣጫ የህዝብን የግለሰብን መብት ሳይሆን ብቻ ሳይሆን ፒፕልስ የሚላቸው እንደ ግሩፕ የሚመጡትን የነሱን መብት በሞላ የሚያስጠብቅ እንትን ነው ማህበር ነው አንዱ ዊንግ ነው ተቀማጭነቱም ከሴኔጋል ጋምቢያ ላይ ነው የሚቀመጠው ሌላው የሌጋል ዊንግ ያለው እሱ ደግሞ አሩሻ ላይ ነው የሚቀመጠው አሩሻ ላይ ነው
የነዚህ ስብስብ አሁን ለሚደረገው ምርጫ በቀጥታ ስርጭት ለሚደረገው የቀጥታ ስርጭት ምናልባት ዲሞክራሲን ከማብረታት አኳያ ትንሽ ነገር ቲፕ አድርገንና መሻገሪያ እንወስዳለን
yes ምናልባት እነዚህን ባክግራውንድ የምሰጥ ለምንድን ነው የነዚህ ሁሉ ድምር ውጤት ነው ኮሚሽነሩ ቪዥን አሁን ሊመጡ አሁን የሚመሩት ምናልባት ከሶስቱ አንዱ ሊመረጡ ስለሚችሉ እነዚህ እንዴት እንደሚመሩ እንደዚህ እንዴት አድርገው ስትራክቸር እንደሚያደርጓቸው የሚያቀርቡት ሰነድ ነው ተመራጭ የሚያደርጋቸው ኦፍ ኮርስ የነበራቸው ኤክስፒሪየንስ ከዚህ በፊት የመሩበት ሁኔታ እሱ ወሳኝነት አለው ምናልባት ሾርት ካሚንግሱ ምንድነው እጥረቶቹን ልናወራ እንችላለን ስለዚህ የዚህ ቀደም እንዳነሳሁት በመጀመሪያው ዙር የዚህ የምንድነው የአፍሪካን ዩኒየን ኮሚሽነር አመራረጥ እንትን ለሁላችንም ጉድ ስታርት ብለናል አባባሌ ጥሩ ጅማሮ ነው ግን ሊጠናከር ሊጎለብት የሚገባው ነገር ነው ብለን
ኮሚሽነሩ ምን ሚና ይኖረዋል 2063 ካቀዳቸው እቅዶች ወይ ደግሞ ዘለግ ያለው የአፍሪካ ህብረት አጠቃላይ እንቅስቃሴ በዲሞክራሲ በሰላምና ጸጥታ በደህንነት የአፍሪካ አህጉር ራሱ ልክ እንደ ጸጥታው ጥበቃ ምክር ቤት ሰላምና ደህንነት የሚል ቦታ አለው አይደለ ስለዚህ እነዚህ ሰዎች ሊመጡ ቢችሉ ቅድም በተቃቀስካቸው ጉዳዮች ዙሪያ ላይ አንድ ላይ የአህጉሩን ሀገራት ብሔራዊ ጥቅም ወይ ደግሞ ጥቅም የየሀገራትን ጥቅም ወይ ደግሞ የአህጉሩን ጥቅም በማስጠበቅ ረገድ በዓለም የጂኦፖለቲካ መድረኮች ሊኖረው የሚችለውን አንድምታ በሰፊው የምናይበት ነው የተወደዳችሁ እንግዲህ ከሰዓታት በኋላ የአፍሪካ ህብረት ኮሚሽን ሊቀመንበር ሆኖ ለመዝለቅ የሚደረገውን የመጨረሻው ዙር የምርጫ ቅስቀሳ ግብግብ የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን በቀጥታ ስርጭት ከአፍሪካ ህብረት ለመላው ኢትዮጵያ ለመላው አፍሪካና ለመላው ዓለም የሚያሳልፍበትን ልዩ ሁነት በተመለከተ ሰፋ ያለ የፖለቲካ ትንተና እየሰጠንበት ያለውን ጥንቅር እየተከታተላችሁ ትገኛላችሁ እንግዶቼና ባልደረቦቼ አሁንም አብረውን የሚዘልቁ ነው የሚሆነው ከመሸጋገሪያ በኋላ እንመለሳለን አብራችሁን ሁኑ
Union Commission. Let me introduce them to you. The first candidate, His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, Djibouti. The second candidate, His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga, Kenya. The third candidate, His Excellency Richard Randriamandrato, Madagascar. And now, let's take a deeper look into their profiles.
ተመልሰናል የተወደዳችሁ የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን በልዩ ጥንቅሩ ዛሬ እንግዲህ የአፍሪካ ህብረት ኮሚሽን ሊቀመንበር ሆኖ ለመዝለቅ ሶስት ተፎካካሪ እጩዎች የመጨረሻ የምርጫ ቅስቀሳቸውን የሚያደርጉበት እለት ላይ ነው የምንገኘው። ሰፊ ውይይቶችን እያነሳን ነው የምንገኘው። አንድምታውን በተመለከተ የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን ከአንጋፋው የኢትዮጵያ ብሔራዊ ሬዲዮ እስከ ቴሌቪዥን ድረስ የአፍሪካ ድምጽ ሆኖ የዘለቀባቸው ጊዜያቶች ኢቢሲና የአፍሪካ ህብረት የአፍሪካ አንድነት ድርጅት እያለን እያነሳሳን ኮሚሽነር ሆነው ሊመረጡ ቢችሉስ ኃላፊነታቸው እንደምን ያለ ሊሆን ይችላል የሚለውንም ጉዳይ እየተጋራን ከእንግዶቼ ጋር እና ከባልደረቦቼ ጋር ቆይታ እያደረግንበትን ያለው ልዩ ጥንቅር እየተካተላችሁ ነው። ለመሆኑ ሶስት እጩዎች እነማን ናቸው? ምን አይነት ታሪክ ያላቸው ናቸው የሚለውን እስኪ በወፍ በረር በጥቂቱ ላጋራችሁ። የአፍሪካ ህብረት ኮሚሽን ሊቀመንበር እጩዎች እንግዲህ ሶስት ሆነው ቀርተዋል። ከዚህ በፊት በርከት ያለ ቁጥር እንደነበራቸው ይታወቃል። ለመጨረሻው ዙር የደረሱ ግን ሶስቱ ናቸው። መሐመድ አሊ ዩሱፍ ጅቡቲያዊ ናቸው። ኃላፊነታቸው በሀገሪቱ የውጭ ጉዳይ ሚኒስትር ሆነው ያገለገሉ ናቸው። የ59 እድሜ ባለጸጋ የጎልማሳ እንላቸው እንችላለን። እንደ አውሮፓ አቆጣጠር እንግዲህ ከ2013 ጀምሮ ሀገራቸውን በተለያየ የስራ ኃላፊነት ያገለገሉ ጉምቱ ፖለቲከኛ ናቸው። ሌላኛው ራይላ ኦዲንጋ ናቸው። በኬንያ እንግዲህ በተለያዩ ኃላፊነቶች የቆዩ ግለሰብ ናቸው። በተለይ በኬንያ የቀድሞ ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ሆነው ያገለገሉ 3-4 እስከ 5 ጊዜ ድረስ እንግዲህ ለፕሬዝዳንትነትም ሲወዳደሩ በእርግጥ ውጤት ባይቀናቸውም በሰፊው ዓለም ያውቃቸዋል። የ79 እድሜ ባለጸጋ ናቸው። የስልጣን ዘመናቸው ከ2008 እስከ 2013 ድረስ በሀገሪቱ ከፍተኛውን የስልጣን እርከን ይዘው የቆዩ ናቸው። ሌላኛው ሶስተኛው እጩ ተፎካካሪ ሆነው የሚቀርቡት ደግሞ ሪቻርድ ራንዳራማንዳራቶ የማዳጋስካር ተወላጅ የሆኑ እንደዚሁም ደግሞ የቀድሞ የሀገሪቱ የውጭ ጉዳይ ሚኒስትር ሆነው ያገለገሉና የ65 ዓመት እድሜ ባለጸጋ ሆነው ያገለገሉ ናቸው። እነዚህ ሶስት እጩዎች እንግዲህ ከአንድ ሰዓት ጀምሮ በኢትዮጵያ ሰዓት አቆጣጠር በኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን ቀጥታ ለመላው ኢትዮጵያ ለመላው አፍሪካና እንደዚሁም ለመላው ዓለም የእጩነታቸውን የመጨረሻ ፉክክር ግብ የሚያደርጉበት ነው። ሰፊ የሆነ ተመልካች ባለው የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን ሁሉም የሚዲየም አማራጮች እንግዲህ ፉክክራቸውን የሚያደርጉ ነው የሚሆነው። እነዚህ እጩዎች በመጨረሻ አንድ እጩ ሊመረጥ እንደሚችል ይታሰባል። ምናልባት እጩ ከመጣ በኋላ ወይ ደግሞ ኮሚሽነር ከተመረጠ በኋላ በእርግጥም የካቲት ወር ላይ በሚኒስትር በሚሰጥ ድምጽ ነው እንግዲህ ወደ ኮሚሽነርነት ይመጣሉ ተብሎ የሚታሰበው። ግን ምን ጉዳዮችን ይዘው ሊመጡ ይችላሉ የሚለው ራሱን የቻለ ተጠባቂ የሚያደርገው ነው። ሂክማ ወደ አንቺ ልመለስና ጥቂት ደግሞ በቋንቋ ስቲፕ አድርጊያቸውና እንመለሳለን።
All right, so you are still watching our coverage, the live coverage of the highly anticipated African Union leadership debate, also known as Majdala Africa, that is about to take place here in Addis Ababa, the African Union headquarters here in Ethiopia. So the debate is actually a cornerstone of the African Union's commitment to transparency and also participatory leadership. And candidates vying for this prestigious roles of chairperson and also deputy chairperson of the African Union Commission are expected to present their vision for the continent's future as well. And they will also address critical issues such as economic development, peace and security, climate resilience, and the implementation of the Agenda 2063, which is the African Union's strategic framework for Africa's transformation. And we are right here in the studio looking into different topics that are related to this debate, as well as what are the implications, what should we expect, and who would actually win this debate. We are looking into this with a senior researcher at the University of Johannesburg, Dr. Seifa Taddala, and also my colleagues here transmitting live with Amharic language. So we will keep looking into different discussions as well. I'll be forwarding some questions for Doctor as well. I'm not sure if I should continue or should I give it a chance?
Sure. You can continue with
all right, so Dr. Seifa, welcome once again. Let me ask you regarding the vision and the vision of the Agenda 2063. How do we as a continent, how can we advance the key goals of Agenda 2063, particularly economic integration and sustainable development? What do you think on this?
Thank you once again, Hikma. The Agenda 2063 is divided by different phases. As you know, there is what they call it silencing the gap, which has been almost expired. The last, the period was like 2020. Still, the guns are out there, you know.
Not silenced. Right?
Not silenced. Actually, it's tripled or quadrupled.
We still have the vision to silence the gun by 2030.
Now
Right
the second round, you know, they extended the vision, and it has different component, as you know. I mean, it has economic integration through AFCTA and what we call the CFTA, Continental Free Trade Agreement. In 2018, we ratified the what do you call it, or we agreed to ratify the CFTA in Rwanda, Kigali. And most, I think by now, 44 African countries ratified, and most of them are signed to implement in their constituency. It's the only one country which has never been signed, that is the state of Eritrea, except all 54 countries, they signed the agreement. And there is some movement. Still, it's not boiled yet, but people are thinking how to integrate these things, and it needs a little bit of, you know, background. You know, unless we harmonize, you know, our trade policy in each constituency, we can't implement, you know, what do you call it, a Continental Free Trade Agreement outrightly. And the vehicle to Continental Free Trade Agreement is RECs, Regional Economic Communities. As you know, that we have like 8 regional economic communities. Some are very active, some are dormant, some are dead by now, like Senesad, which is not very active in a way. We have to discuss, you know, how this regional economic communities are working, their implication towards to the implementation of peace and security in the continent, you know, vis-a-vis development and the continental free movement of goods and people. So we have to, you know, unlock each item one by one, and we have to go back as well, you know, as I mentioned in the Amharic, you know, the Lagos Plan of Action, the Abuja Treaty, and other treaty which is pertinent to accelerate the unification of the African Union. That's right.
So the African Continental Free Trade Area, as you mentioned, is a huge project. If it's implemented, it will provide a very good outcome for the continent generally. But what strategies should we use at the continent in order to implement effectively this African Continental Free Trade Area? What do you think?
Look, we have to do two things, in my opinion. You know, the study shows it should be bottom-up and top-bottom approach. When I say bottom-up, you know, people, different countries, they start, you know, trading at the border level. You know, young people, they have to be trained. The awareness should be, you know, cultivated through different channels. You know, what we expect is just to harness, you know, the dividend of two things. One is the youth in the continent. That's a huge number, and these are very motivated just to use, you know, the what do you call it, the modern technology, 4i, and the artificial intelligence. That is which will give us just to harness, you know, the opportunity. But we can't say only the opportunity. There are some challenges, you know, the ratifying the what do you call it, the policy, also implementing and localizing that policy in each country. So for now we are seeing, you know, a little bit of effort from you know, small countries like Kenya, Ghana, and South Africa. They started, you know, sending some items through the CFTA facility, but others still they are not active. So what we need is we need a kind of you know, synthesization throughout the continent. You know, young people just to involve in such manner. So we'll. It's a hope. I mean, this is we're talking about 2.4 trillion market in the continent. So we are expecting in 2030 or 2035 just to reach to 24 trillion. So it's a big opportunity. So we'll talk about it. And for the time being, I think this would be
Yeah, that's great. So we will continue delving into different topics regarding today, why we are here. But right now, Demis is actually on our live transmission as well. He will be sharing some insights for us. So let me just lead to Demis, right?
ከመሻገሪያ በኋላ ደምስን እዛው እናገኘዋለን። ሌሎች ባልደረቦቻችንም ስላሉ መሻገሪያውን እንወስድና እንመለሳለን።
We're at the heart of Addis Ababa, a city of transformation and beauty. This week, the city will host a pivotal event that could shape the future of the continent. Come with me as we explore what's about to unfold. Union Commission. Let me introduce them to you. The first candidate, His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, Djibouti. The second candidate, His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga, Kenya. The third candidate, His Excellency Richard Randriamandrato, Madagascar. And now, let's take a deeper look into their profiles. Will debate their vision for the future of Africa. Watch the AU Commission Chairperson Debate live on EBC exclusively on December 13th.
Welcome back. We are back from the short break. You are still watching our live transmission from the studio here at EBC, reflecting on today's African Union debate, and we are sharing different insights regarding the debate, as well as the African Union Agenda 2063 and also different aspirations of the continent. And right now on our live transmission, once again, we have Demis Makra, our colleague, and he will be sharing different insights as well regarding the African Union debate. So Demis, how you doing? So can you tell us about today's event, which is a grand event, the African Union debate, where we are going to see who is going to win for the African Union Commission chairmanship, actually. So what do you have to share on here?
Thank you very much, Hikma. As we've been saying over the last few days, actually, there are actually 3 candidates running for the prestigious African Union Commission chairmanship. And of course, previously, it was actually 4 candidates who were running for this prestigious role. But it was yesterday we learned that one of the candidates from Mauritius, Anil Gayan, officially withdrew the process. So far unclear what actually is the reason behind that. Now, we actually have 3 candidates officially running for this prestigious position. One actually is from Djibouti, Mohamed Ali Yusuf, a veteran seasoned diplomat who has served in various responsibilities, presently working as a foreign minister of Djibouti. Previously, he served as a chairman of Arab League 2 times, and he has also assumed a number of roles that make him a good candidate for this position. Another candidate from Kenya, Raila Odinga, is also a seasoned politician who served as a former Prime Minister of Kenya and also served within African Union as a high representative for infrastructure. And he's also one of the notable candidates for this position. Another candidate is from Madagascar, Richard Mandrea Darto. He is also former foreign minister for Madagascar, and he is also running for this prestigious position. So the three candidates are really experienced candidates who have served in various responsibilities, leading different roles. So they are really good candidates for this position. And of course, since 2017, Musa Faki Mohamed, the incumbent chairperson of the Africa Union Commission, has been running, leading the continental body over the past 8 years. So now the candidates will replace him officially in the coming February, when the head of state and head of governments will meet here at Addis Ababa for their 38th meeting. So they will give their vote. And this debate that will happen in a few minutes today will definitely give a clue who has a good vision for Africa. Africa has already set Agenda 2063. That is a very comprehensive plan, what Africa aspires to be after 50 years in terms of peace building, prosperity, in terms of creating a very solid continent in overall aspects. This Agenda 2063 puts several important agendas on the table. So the candidates are expected to advance this plan and make Africa very competitive. The chairperson role is actually very diverse, ranging from running financial and administrative things up to representing the Africa continent in a global arena. So it has multifaceted jobs, both at the continental and international stage. So this is a very important position to assume for those upcoming candidates. So today, they are expected to shed light on their vision statements. They are expected to share what their plans are if they assume that responsibility. So it is a very critical debate that gives the audience and all member states who will best can represent Africa at the Africa Union Commission. Over the past decades, since the Organization of Africa Unity transformed into AU, that's actually happened back into 2002. Since then, around 5 commissioners led Africa Union, including the incumbent Musa Faki Mohamed. So now we are looking to see the 6th incoming chairperson of the Africa Union. It's a big responsibility since Africa has a lot of aspiration, be it in economic, political, or social sphere. So it's a big, definitely responsibility. So in a few minutes later on, we're gonna hear what they have to tell to African countries, to all the 55 member states. And then by the coming February, when head of governments and head of states will deliberate here at Addis Ababa, it will definitely be clear who will be the next chairperson of the Africa Union. Today, the debate will be guided by an eminent panel of experts who have a lot of experience in the sector, and they will guide the process. So it's going to be a very important debate, not only for Africa, but for the entire continent. The world is really aspiring to see who will carry Africa forward. That's what can I say, Hikma, for now.
Well, thank you so much, Demis, for your live report and for your insights as well. Let me just give it back to Solomon and Rosa. Of course, you can take it over.
እናመሰግናለን። እንቀጥላለን። የተወደዳችሁ በቀጥታ ስርጭት ልዩ ጥንቅራችን እዚህ አዲስ አበባ ከሚገኘው የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን ዋናው ስቱዲዮ በዛሬው ዕለት እንግዲህ 3 የቀሩ የመጨረሻ ተፎካካሪ እጩዎች ለአፍሪካ ህብረት ኮሚሽን ሊቀመንበር ለመሆን የሚደረገውን የመጨረሻውን ቅስቀሳና የሚያነሷቸውን ሐሳብ የተመለከቱ ጉዳዮችን እያነሳሳን እንቀጥላለን። ሮዝ ወደ አንቺ ልመለስ። ዶክተር መለሳለሁ ወደ አንተም 2063 የሚል ዘለግ ላለ ዓመታት የተቀመጠ እቅድ አለው የአፍሪካ ህብረት እና በቻርተሩም እንደተቀመጠው በተለይ ጦርነት የማይሰማበት በእርግጥ እሱ ነው ወይ የሚለው ነገር ብዙ የሚያከራክር ነው። ምክንያቱም አሁንም ድረስ በኃይል በወታደራዊ መፈንቅለ መንግስት የሚመጡ ደግሞ ይሄን ሙከራ የሚያደርጉም ኃይሎች ስላሉ በተቃራኒው ደግሞ ያው ዲሞክራሲ ልምምድ ውስጥ ያለች አህጉር እንደመሆኗ መጠን ይሄኛውም እየሞገታት እንደሆነ ይታወቃልና ዛሬ ለመጨረሻ እጩዎች የቀሩት የምርጫ ተፎካካሪዎች እንግዲህ በተለይ በአህጉሩ ሊመጣ የሚችለውን የበለጸገ ሰላሙ የተጠበቀ እንደዚሁም ደግሞ አንድነቱ የተጠበቀና የዲሞክራሲ ልምምድ ከማምጣት አኳያ ሊፈጥር የሚችለው ራሱን የቻለ አንድምታ ደግሞ አለው አይደለ? እሱን በሱ ላይ ምን ማለት ይቻላል?
እንግዲህ በነገራችን ላይ የተመለከትን ያለነው ምስል ከአፍሪካ ህብረት በቀጥታ ወደ እናንተ ያደረስን ያለነው ምስል ነው። አሁን ላይ እንደምናየው ቅድመ ዝግጅቶች አሉ፣ የሚዲያ ሰዎች አሉ፣ እዛ አካባቢ ምርጫው ላይ የሚመለከታቸው በቀጥታም በተዘዋዋሪም እንደዚሁ እዛ እያየናቸው ያሉ አካላት አሉ። ይህ የምርጫ ስነስርዓት የቀጥታ የምርጫ ክርክር ስነስርዓት በቀጥታ ሲጀምር ከደቂቃዎች በኋላ የምንመለከተው ነው የሚሆነው። አሁንም ግን እዛ አካባቢ ምን አለ፣ ድባቡ ምን ይመስላል የሚለውን ከአፍሪካ ህብረት ስቱዲዮአችን በቀጥታ ነው ያደረስናችሁ ያለ ነው። ቀደም ሲል ሰለሞን በርካታ ልንልበት የምንችለውን ትልቁን ግዙፍ ብለን የምናስበውን የ2063 የአፍሪካ አጀንዳን አንስተናል። እንግዲህ አፍሪካ ውህደቷን ከፈጠረች በኋላ በተለይም የነበረው ትግል ይታወቃል በሞኖሮቪያና በካዛብላንካ መካከል። በኋላ በተለይ ኢትዮጵያ ሚናዋ ምንድነው እዚህ ላይ ስንል ወደኋላ በደንብ በስፋት እንደምንቃኘው ካለን ሰዓት አኳያ ተስፋ አደርጋለሁ። ነገር ግን እነዚህ ጉዳዮች መተው እውነት ነው እነዚህ ጉዳዮች መተው 2063 አጀንዳ ከተቀረጸ በኋላ አፍሪካን በ2063 ይችን አህጉራችንን ያለችንን ብቻኛ አህጉር እንዴት አድርገን 2063 ላይ በምን መልኩ ልናያት ይገባል ልናደርሳት ይገባል ምን እንጠብቃለን የሚለው ዋነኛ ትልም ነው። እንግዲህ 178 አካባቢ ዋና ዋና የሚባሉ ጎሎች እንዳሉት ነው የሚጠቀሰው 2063። ነገር ግን ቀደም ሲል ዶክተር እንዳሉት በብዙ መልኩ አንተም ስታነሳ እንደነበረው ማለት ነው በብዙ መልኩ በፌዞች ተከፋፍለው በግቦችና በፖሊሲዎች በቻርተሮች እየጸደቀ በስምምነቶች እየዳበረ የሚሄድ ጉዳይ ነው። የመጀመሪያው ግን ፕሮስፔሬስ አፍሪካን ወይም ደግሞ በለጸገች አፍሪካን በሁለንተናዊ ዘርፍ በፖለቲካው በማህበራዊው በኢኮኖሚው የበለጸገች አፍሪካን በ2063 አሳክቶ ማየት ትልቁ የሆነ አጀንዳ ነው። እንግዲህ እዚህ ውስጥ የበለጸገች ስንል በኢኮኖሚው የምናነሳበት የግል ሴክተሩ በደንብ የተጠናከረበት ኢንዱስትሪው የበረታበት ለዜጎች ስራ የተፈጠረበት በቴክኖሎጂ በዲጂታል ፋይናንስ በብዙ መልኩ ልናነሳ የምንችለውና ዜጎች አፍሪካውያን ሁሉ የተመቻቸ ኑሮ ሊኖሩባት የምትገባ አፍሪካን በ2063 መፍጠር ዋና ዓላማ ተደርጎ የሚካሄድ ነው። ሁለተኛው የተዋሃደች አፍሪካ ነው። ይሄ ወደ 1963 እና ከዛ በፊት ወዳለው ጉዳይ ነው የሚወስደን። የተዋሃደች አፍሪካ በሂደት የምንጠብቀው ቀጠናዊ የሆነ ጉዳይ እንደሆነ እናውቃለን። ከዛ ከስምምነቱ ከመግባባቱ በኋላ የመጣ ስለዚህ ቀጠናዊ ውህደቶች መተው መጨረሻ ላይ በፖለቲካ የተዋሃደች በፖለቲካ እንዲሆነች በኢኮኖሚ የተዋሃደች አህጉረ አፍሪካን መፍጠር ትልቅ ትልም አድርጎ የመጣ ነው። ይህ ደግሞ በብዙ መልኩ ተከፋፍሎ ብናየው በቀጠናዊ ውህደቶች ለምሳሌ እነሳደቅ እነ ኢጋድ ብለን የምናነሳቸው የኢኮዋስ ብለን ቀጠናዊ ድርጅቶች በነዛ ውስጥ የሚፈጸምና ኢትዮጵያ ትልቁን ለምሳሌ እያከናወነች ያለችውን እንደ ሀገር ብናነሳ ይሄንን የቀጠናዊ ውህደትን በኤሌክትሪክ ኃይል የመዋሃድን በብዙ መልኩ እንደጀመረችው ይታወቃል። ኢትዮጵያ ታች ታንዛኒያ ድረስ የሚደርስ የኤሌክትሪክ መስመር በመዘርጋት ይህንን ቀጠናዊ ውህደት ይፋ አድርጋለች ወይም ደግሞ ጥረቶቿን እንዳንድ ሀገር እየተወጣች እንዳለ እናውቃለን። ከጅቡቲ ጋር ያለው የባቡር መተሳሰርን ልናነሳ እንችላለን። በምሳሌ ከኬንያ ጋር ያሉ የመንገድ ግንባታዎችን ልናነሳ እንችላለን። እንደነዚህ ያሉ ቀጠናዊ ውህደቶች በመጨረሻ የተዋሃደች አፍሪካን በ2063 ዋና ልናይ ይገባል ከሚለው አጀንዳ የተቀዳ ነውና እነዚህ ሌሎኞቹ ናቸው ከምናነሳቸው ውጪ የመልካም አስተዳደርና የዲሞክራሲ ጉዳዮች አፍሪካን በእጅጉ እየፈተኗት ነው። እንደሚታወቀው ሰለሞን አንስተዋል። የመንግስት ግልበጣዎች የሚደረግባት አፍሪካ ናት። አሁንም ድረስ ዲሞክራሲ በንግግር በጠረጴዛ ዙሪያ ችግሮችን እየፈታች ያለች አፍሪካ አይደለችም። ይህንን በ2063 የተሻለ አሳክታ እንድትመጣ ለማድረግ በተለይ 2031 ሳይለንሲንግ ተገን ወይም ደግሞ የጦር መሳሪያ ድምጽ የማይሰማባት አፍሪካን እንፍጠር ሲባል አንዱ ትልቁ ተደርጎ የምናየው ነው። ሰላማዊ አፍሪካ ከዚህ ጋር ከመልካም አስተዳደርና ዲሞክራሲ ጋር አብረን እናያይዘዋለን። ግን ፈጠን ብለን ለማንሳት ጠንካራ ባህል፣ ጠንካራ ስነ ምግባር፣ ጠንካራ ማህበራዊ አንድነት ያላትን አፍሪካን መፍጠር ከ2063 አጀንዳው ሌላኛው አድርገን እናነሳለን። ዶክተር ቀደም ሲል አንስቷል። ወጣቶች ላይ፣ ሴቶች ላይ፣ ህፃናት ላይ ሴቶች የማይገለሉበት ወጣቶች እንደፈለጉ ወጥተው የፖለቲካ ሀሳቦቻቸውን የሚያንጸባርቁበት የስራ ተጠቃሚ የሚሆኑበት የትምህርት እድል የሚያገኙባት የተሻለች አፍሪካን መገንባት ሌላኛው የ2063 ዋነኛ አጀንዳ ሆኖ ዘልቋል። ጠንካራ ተጽዕኖ ፈጣሪና በዓለም ላይ ተጽዕኖ መፍጠር የምትችል አፍሪካን መገንባት ደግሞ ሌላኛው ትልቁ ዓላማ ነው። ለምሳሌ አፍሪካ በባለፉት ዓመታት የቡድን 20 አባል መሆን ችላለች። የብሪክስ አባል በተናጥል ሀገራት እየተቀላቀሉት እንዳለ ይታወቃል። ኢትዮጵያ በዚህ ትልቅ ስኬት አምጥታለች እንደምናውቀው ባለፈው አመት የብሪክስን አባል ሀገራት በመግባት ከነሱ ውስጥ አንዷ በመሆኑ ማለት ነው ነገር ግን ከዚህም ልልቅ ይገባል የተባበሩት መንግስታት ድርጅት የጸጥታው ምክር ቤት መቀመጫነትን አግኝታ በድምጽ የመሻር መብት ለአፍሪካውያን ይገባቸዋል እንደሌላ ጉዳይ ሊታይ የሚገባ አይደለም የሚለውና በዓለም አቀፍ ደረጃ ጠንካራ የሆነ ተጽዕኖ ልንፈጥር ይገባል የሚለው ሐሳብ በዋናነት እየተንጸባረቀ የሚገኝበት እንደሆነ ይታወቃል 2063 ስለዚህ ብዙ ነገሮችን ከዛ ጋር ስናነሳ ከ2063 አኳያ ስናነሳ ዝርዝር የሆኑ እቅዶች አሉ የምንተገብራቸው እቅዶች አሉ የሚነሱ እና ያንን ማስተካከል የሚገባቸው ሂደቶች አሉ ታዲያ ዛሬ እንግዲህ እንዳየነው ይህ የምርጫ ፉክክር የሚመረጡ መሪዎች ወይም ደግሞ ከሶስቱ ተፎካካሪዎች ዛሬ በቀጥታ ስርጭት ውይይት ከተደረገ በኋላ በቀጣይ ምርጫ የሚመረጡት የሚጠበቀው ነገር ይሄንን 2063 አጀንዳን ለማሳካት ምን ጉዳዮች ላይ ትኩረት ያደርጋሉ የሚለው ሐሳብ ነው ምክንያቱም በርካቶች ይሄንን እንደ ትኬት ነው የሚቆጥሩት ይሄን ሰራለሁኝ ከተመረጥኩኝ በቀጣይ 4 አመታት ይሄን አደርጋለሁ ብለው ስለሆነ ከዛ አኳያ የ2063 አጀንዳ ዋና ነው እንደውም ከተመለከታችኋቸው እነዚህ የተፎካካሪዎች ሶስቱም ማለት ነው በዋናነት በኋላ ልናነሳቸው እንችላለን የትኩረት አቅጣጫቸውን ሲለዩ ከ2063 ጋር በዋና መልኩ የተገናኘ የምርጫ የትኩረት አቅጣጫዎችን ያቀረቡት የማንኛው የበለጠ የቅድሚያ ይሆናል የማንኛው ደግሞ ለመራጮች የሚሰጠው ነው ግን 2063 አጀንዳ ዋንኛው መንቀሳቀሻ የተፎካካሪዎችም ሐሳባችን ይገዛልን ጥያቄ መነሻ ነው ማለት
ትክክል ነው ከዛ አኳያ ነው ሁሉም ነገር ሊቀዳ የሚችለው ተብሎ ነው የሚታሰበው ዶክተር ወዳንተ እየተመለስኩ ነው እንግዲህ ታላቁን አህጉራዊ ሁነት የአፍሪካ ኅብረት ኮሚሽን ሊቀመንበር የምርጫ ቅስቀሳን የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን በሁሉም አማራጮቹ ማለትም በኢቢሲ.ስትሪም በኢቢሲ ወርልድ በፌስቡክ ገጽ በኢቢሲ ትዊተር ወይንም ኤክስ እንደዚሁም ደግሞ በቲክቶክ ገጻችን በሁሉም አማራጮች በሬዲዮም በቴሌቪዥን ልትከታተሉ ትችላላችሁ ከዚህ ከዋናው ስቱዲዮ በቀጥታ ስርጭት የሚተላለፉ ሁነቶችንም በያላችሁበት ዓለም ሁናችሁ በአማራጮቻችን ሁሉ በሚቀርባችሁ በሚቀናቸው አማራጮቻችን ሁሉ ልትከታተሉን ትችላላችሁ እንቀጥላለን ዶክተር ይሄን ሁነት ስናስብ እንግዲህ በዋናነት የ2063 አጀንዳ የሚቀዱ ጉዳዮችን ተመራጮች ለምርጫ ቅስቀሳ ሊጠቀሙባቸው እንደሚችል ይጠበቃል ተብሎ ይታሰባል ያ ዋነኛው ሐሳብም እሱ ይሆናል ተብሎ ነው የሚታሰበው ምናልባት ከሶስቱ አንዱ ኮሚሽነር ሊቀመንበር ሆነው ቢመጡ የኮሚሽነር ሊቀመንበሩ ሚና በአፍሪካ ኅብረት በአፍሪካ አህጉር ፖለቲካና ኢኮኖሚ ምን ያክል ነው ልኬታውን ማወቅ እንችል ይሆን ምን ስራዎችን ነው የሚተገብረው ዶክተር
ቴንክ ዩ አመሰግናለሁ ሰለሞን እሱ ወሳኝ ጥያቄ ነው የሚሆነው ምናልባትም ትዝላችሁ እንደሆነ ትንሽ ወደ ኋላ እንመልሳችሁና የሩዋንዳው መሪ ፖል ካጋሜ ይሄ ሪስትራክቸር እንዲያደርጉ ተጠይቀው ነበርና አንድ ሪስትራክቸር የሚያደርግ ኮሚቴም ተዋቅሮ ነበር ዋነኛው የዛ ትኩረት አቅጣጫ የነበረው የዚህ የኮሚሽነሩ ጥንካሬ እንዲመጣ ነው አስፈላጊነቱ ከዚህ ከሴክሬታሪያት ከመምራት አልፎ ወሳኝ የሆኑት የሴኩሪቲ ጉዳዮች የዴቨሎፕመንት የእድገትና ትራንስፎርሜሽን ይሄንን የመሳሰሉትን የመምራት በአገሮች መካከል የሚኖሩን ጣልቃ ገብነት እንኳን ባይሆንም አንዳንድ አስተያየቶች ገንቢ ኮንሰልታቲቭ ሮል እንዲኖራቸው ነበር የታሰበው ግን እስካሁን ያ ነገር ተፈጻሚነት የለውም እንደምታውቁት ይሄ ኮሚሽነር የቺፍ አካውንት ነው የሚሆነው ቺፍ አካውንታንት ማለት የድርጅቱን የሂሳብ የወጪ ገቢ የሚቆጣጠር ሰው ነው የሚሆነው ይሄ ነው ዋነኛ ሮሉ ሁለተኛው ኮሚሽነሮች አሉ እነሱ መምራት ነው እንጂ ከዛ ያለፈ ጠንከር ያለ ጡንቻ አይሰጠውም ወይም መሪዎቹ በየአመቱ የሚያስቀምጡትን ኤዩ ማለት ነው አፍሪካን ዩኒየን እንግዲህ ቅድም ምናልባት ለሂክማ ገልጬላታለሁ ሁለት ልዩነት ተመልካቾቻችን እንዲያውቁ የምፈልገው አፍሪካ ዩኒየን እና አፍሪካ ዩኒየን ኮሚሽን የተለያዩ ኦርጋኖች ናቸው አፍሪካ ዩኒየን ማለት ሄድ ኦፍ ስቴት የሚሰበሰቡበት ነው ዲሲሽን ሜኪንግ ኦርጋን ነው እና ከሱ ደግሞ ትንሽ ዘቅ ብሎ የዚህ የሚኒስትሮች እንትን ኤግዜኪቲቭ ካውንስል የምንለው እንትን ነው ኦርጋን ያለው ከዛ ዝቅ ብሎ ደግሞ ፒኤስአይ የሚባለው የአምባሳደሮች ፐርማነንት ሪፕሬዘንታቲቭ ካውንስል ያለበት ነው ስለዚህ ዋነኛው ትልቁ እንትን የአፍሪካ ጣፈንታ የሚወሰነው በመሪዎች ነው ሄድ ኦፍ ስቴት ቅድም ባልደረባችን ከሄድ ኳርተር ሆኖ እንደዘገበው የዚህ የመርሃ መንግስት መሪዎችና የሄድ ኦፍ ስቴት ኤንድ ሄድ ኦፍ ገቨርንመንት የሚመሩት እንትን ነው የሚሆነው ስለዚህ ይሄ የኮሚሽነር ዋናው የቼርፐርሰን ዋናው እንትን የነሱን እንትን ማስፈጸም ነው through this commissions እና ቅድም የተቃቀስናቸው ኦርጋኖች አሉ እነሱን የመከታተል እንትን ነው ስለዚህ ምናልባት ወደፊት ይሄ ጥሩ ጅማሮ ነው ግን ወደፊት ጡንቻ ያለው ጡንቻ አይነ ሴንስ አሚን የማስፈጸም አቅም ያለው ቸርማን እንዲሆን እንፈልጋለን ሁላችንም ምኞታችን የዜጎች ሐሳብ የሚንጸባረቅበት የዜጎች የዌልቢንግ ወደፊት አብረን የማደግ የመደሰት በአህጉራችን የመጠቀም እሱን የሚያረጋግጥልን አህጉራዊ ድርጅት እንዲሆን ነው ምንመኘው ግን ያ ሁሉም ነገር ሂደት ስለሆነ አሁን በዛ ሂደት ውስጥ ያለፍን ነው ይሄም ጥሩ ጅማሮ ነው ብለን መውሰድ ይችላል
ዶክተር እዚሁ ላይ አንድ ጥያቄ ላንሳ አፍሪካ አህጉር ሁለት ነገሮች መሳለመሰ የሚሄዱበት ነው አንደኛው ሰላማዊ የሆነ የስልጣን ሽግግር በሚያደርጉ በሌላኛው አይነት መንገድ ደግሞ በወታደራዊ መፈንቅለ መንግስት አሁንም ወደ ስልጣን የሚመጡ ኃይሎችም ያለበት አህጉር ነው አሁን 2063 አንደኛው እስከ 2030 ድረስ ምንም ከምንድነው የሚባለው የጥይት ድምጽ ወይ ደግሞ የጦርነት ድምጽ የማይሰማበት አህጉር ለመፍጠር በሚደረገው ጥረት ውስጥ ተስፋዎቻችን ምንድናቸው ማለት አሁን በአንዳንድ አካባቢዎች ላይ እንደ ጋና ባሉ እንደ ደቡብ አፍሪካ ባሉ ሀገራት ኢትዮጵያን ጨምሮና በሌሎችም አንዳንድ ሀገራት ሰላማዊ የሆነ የስልጣን ሽግግር እየተደረገ ወይ ደግሞ ምርጫ እየተደረገ ያያየን ነው እና እሱን እንመለስበታለን እስኪ ከአፍሪካ ህብረት አንድ ባልደረባችን በቀጥታ መስመራችን አለ ወንደ ሰናፈወርቅ እዛው ነው የሚገኘው ወንዴ ሰላም ላንተ እንደምን አመሽህ እንግዲህ በቀጥታ ስርጭታችን የተለያዩ እንቅስቃሴዎች እየተደረጉ እንደሆኑ ያያየን ነውና አንተ እዛ እንደመገኘትህ መጠን ያለውና አትሞስፌር ንገረን እስኪ ምንድነው እየተካሄደ ያለው በአሁኑ ሰዓት ምን አይነት እንቅስቃሴዎች አሉ ምን እየታዘብክ ነው የሚለውን ንገረን እስኪ
እንደምን ውለሃል ሰለሞን
ነህ
ተማነን ወልዘ
መከተል ይችላልህ እንዴ
እንደምን አመሻችሁ ሰለሞንና ሮዛ ቀደም ሲል እናንተ በስፋት ስታነሱት ነበር እንግዲህ በጣም በጉጉት ሲጠበቅ የነበረው መድረክ ከጥቂት ደቂቃዎች በኋላ የሚጀምር ነው የሚሆነው ከማለዳ ጀምሮ ዝግጅቶችን ስንመለከት ነበር አሁን ደግሞ ጥሪ የተደረገላቸው የተለያዩ እንግዶች እዚህ አዳራሽ ውስጥ ገብቷል እንግዲህ ክርክር የሚያደርጉ እጩዎችም እንዲሁ ወደዚህ ወደ አፍሪካ ህብረት አዳራሽ ሲገቡ ተመልክቻለሁ ከደቂቃዎች በኋላ እዚህ ደርሰው ሲጠበቅ እንደነበረው እንግዲህ አንድ ሰዓት አካባቢ ላይ ክርክሩ ይጀምራል ተብሎ ነው የሚጠበቀው ቅድም እንድስታነሱት እንደነበረው አፍሪካውያን በተለይ አጀንዳ 2063ን እውን ለማድረግ የተለያዩ ስራዎችን እየሰሩ ነው የሚገኙት በዚህ ረገድ በተለይ ቀጣይ የሚመጡ የአፍሪካ ህብረት ኮሚሽን ሊቀመንበር ሆነው የሚመረጡ ሰው በተለይ አፍሪካን የተሻለ ከማድረግ ሰላሟ ደህንነቷ የተጠበቀ ከማድረግ አንጻር በጣም እጅግ ብዙ ስራዎች ይጠብቃቸዋል ቀደም ሲል ሲነሳም እንደነበረው ሶስት እጩዎች ናቸው በዚህ በአፍሪካ ህብረት ኮሚሽን ሊቀመንበር ለመሆን የቀረቡት እነዚህ እጩዎች ከምስራቅ አፍሪካ የተወጣጡ ናቸው ከኬንያ ከጅቡቲ እንዲሁም ደግሞ ከማዳጋስካር ማለት ነው እንግዲህ በዛሬው ዕለት የሚያደርጉት ክርክር በዋነኛነት በቀጣይ አፍሪካ በነሱ ጊዜ ምን አይነት መልክ እንዲኖራት ነው የሚሹት የሚለውን በስፋት የሚያስመለክቱበት ነው የሚሆነው ማለት ነው እንግዲህ ከዚህ ክርክር በጣም ብዙ አፍሪካውያን ይከታተሉታል ተብሎ ይታሰባል የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽንም በቀጥታ ስርጭት ለኢትዮጵያ ለአፍሪካውያን እንዲሁም ለመላው ዓለም የሚያደርሰው ሁነት ነውና በርካታ አፍሪካውያን የሚጠብቁት ነው የነገ የአፍሪካ ህብረት ኮሚሽን ሊቀመንበር ምን አይነት ነገሮችን ሊሰራ አስቧል እቅዶቹ ምንድናቸው ምን አይነት ፖሊሲዎችን ይዟል ወይም ምን አይነት ድጋፎችን ያደርጋል ለአፍሪካውያን ምን አይነት ስራዎች እንዲሰሩ ያደርጋል ከዛ ውጪ በዓለም መድረክም እንዲሁ አፍሪካ ወደ ፊት እንድትመጣ ብዙ ጥረቶች እየተደረጉ ነው አሁን ተግባራዊ እንቅስቃሴዎችንም እየተመለከትን ያለንበት ወቅት ነውና በዚህ ረገድ እንደው ምን አይነት ስራዎች ይሰራሉ የሚለውን በስፋት ያነሱበታል የሚል እምነት አለኝ ስለዚህ ይህንን በቀጥታ ስርጭት ከደቂቃዎች በኋላ ወደ አድማጭ ተመልካቾቻችን በተለያዩ አማራጮች የምናደርስ ነው የሚሆነው
እናመሰግናለን ወንዴ ወደ በኋላ ላይ መልሰን እንገናኛለን ዶክተር ቀደም ሲል ያነሷት ሐሳብ አለ እሷን በጥቂቱ ትለንና ከህክማ ጋር ደግሞ ምን ቀጥልበት ይሆናል ምናልባት ተስፋዎቻችን ምንድናቸው ያነሳውልህ ነበረ ዲሞክራሲም ያለበት የዲሞክራሲ ልምምድም ያለበት ጭላንጭል ያለበት በተቃራኒው ደግሞ አሁንም በኃይል አማራጭ እንደገና የህገ መንግስታዊ በሆነ መንገድ በወታደራዊ መፈንቅለ መንግስት ስልጣን የሚያዝበት በእርግጥ የአፍሪካ ህብረት በፍጥነት ያገዳቸው ሀገራት እንደነበሩም እናስታውሳለን በግብጽ በሱዳን በደቡብ ሱዳን በመካከለኛው ኢኳቶሪያል ጊኒ በአፍሪካ በተለያዩ ቀጠናዎች እንደዚህ ያለ እንቅስቃሴ ሲያደርጉ የነበሩትን ወዲያው ከህብረቱ ሲያገዳቸው ይሄን ሲያስተካክሉ ደግሞ ሲመልሳቸው ያየናቸው ሀገራት ናቸው እንደ ኢትዮጵያ እንደ ጋና እንደ ግብጽና ደቡብ አፍሪካ ያሉ ሀገራት አንተ በምርምር የምትኖርበት ሀገር የተሻለ ምርጫ ደግሞ የሚያደርጉ ናቸውና ተስፋችን እስኪ ንገረን ምንድነው ያጉሩ ተስፋ ከዚህ አኳያ
አወል ሰለሞን አመሰግናለሁ እንደገና ይሄ የአፍሪካን ዩኒየን እንግዲህ የሁላችንም እጣፈንታ በዛ ውስጥ የታቀፈ ነው ብዬ ነው ማስበው እኔ ላለፉት 10 አመታት የማጠናው አፍሪካ ዩኒየን እንዴት አድርገው ነው ወደ አንድ ሀገር ቅርጽ የሚመጣው አፍሪካ ሀገርም አህጉርም የሚሆንበት ፕላትፎርም እንዴት ነው የምናደርገው ብለን ነው የምናስበው ስለዚህ የተለያዩ ጥናቶች ይደረጋሉ ግን ወደ አንተ ጥያቄ ልመለስ የኔን ጥናት ከማብራራት ይልቅ ዋናው እንትን ከዚህ ከአፍሪካን ዩኒየን ቸርማን የምንጠብቀው ከዚህ በፊት የተወሰኑ ውሳኔዎች ብዙዎቻችን ችግሮቻችን የሚመጣው ከዚህ በፊት የተወሰዱትን ውሳኔዎች ወደፊት የማምጣት ችግር ነው ያለብን እንደነገርኩ የዚህ የአቡጃ ትሪቲ ሶስተኛው ፌዝ ላይ ነው ያለነው አሁን የሚጠቃለለው አይ ቲንክ ከ4 አመት በኋላ 2028 ላይ ነው አቡጃ ትሪቲ የሚያልቀው አቡጃ ትሪቲ ሲያልቅ ምንድነው የአቡጃ ትሪቲ ቀጣይ እጣ ፈንታ የሚሆነው ሀገሮች እንዴት ነው ንግግራቸውን የሚያሳልጡት ዋነኛው እንደውም ቅድም ያነሳ ነው ሃርሞናይዜሽን የፖለቲካል ሃርሞናይዜሽን የትሬድ ሃርሞናይዜሽን ሊሆን ይችላል የቪዛ ሬጂም ሃርሞናይዜሽን ሊሆን ይችላል ነምበር ኦፍ እንትን አለ እስካሁን ፔንድ ያደረጉ ወይም ተንጠልጥለው የቀሩ ብዙ ጉዳዮች አሉ
የፖለቲካ የኢኮኖሚ የዲሞክራሲ ሽግግር ውህደት
ትስሮችን የማምጣት እንትን ነው ግን ዋነኛው መሰረቱ ስትራክቸር ነው የሚሆነው ስትራክቸሩ እንዴት ነው ልንለውጥ የምንችለው የነዚህ መሪዎች አሁን ምናልባት ከ3 አንድ የሚመረጡት ይሄንን ትራንዚሽን እንዴት ነው የሚያሳኩት ነው ትልቁ የመራጮች እንትን መሆን ያለበት የመራጮችን ስብጥር እንዴት ነው የሚሆነው ምናልባት የምታነሳው ጥያቄ ስለሚሆን በኋላ መለስበታለሁ
ግምትህን ትነግረናለህ አሁን ባጭሩ ብቻ ተስፋችን ንገረንና ወደ ህክማን ሄዳለን
ተስፋችን የሚሆነው ቅድም እንዳነሳው የዚህ ዲሞክራቲክ ያልሆኑ ሀገሮች ምናልባት በመፈንቅለ መንግስት ወይም በጦር አማራጭ ወደፊት የሚመጡትን እሱን የማስቆምና ትክክለኛ ሂደት ውስጥ የሚሄድ ሁሉም ሀገሮች ካንዱ የሚማሩበትን ሁኔታ ዌስት አፍሪካ አሁን እንዳልቀድም እንዳነሳው ሴኔጋል ጥሩ አማራጭ ናት ጋና ጥሩ አይነት ተምሳሌት ናት ኮትዲቯርን በዛ መስመር እየሄደች ያለች ሀገር ናት ከደቡብ አፍሪካ በአብዛኛው ዛምቢያ ሳውዝ አፍሪካ እነ ማላዊ ማንሳት እንችላለን ከምስራቅ አፍሪካ ደግሞ ኬንያ ኢትዮጵያ ጥሩ አይነት ሂደት ውስጥ ያሉ ሀገሮች ናቸው ስለዚህ እነዚህን ተሞክሮች ወደ ጎን በማስፋት ያስፈልጋል የሚል እምነት ነው ያለኝ
እንቀጥላለን የተወደዳችሁ ከዋናው ስቱዲዮ በቀጥታ ስርጭት የመጨረሻውን የአፍሪካ ህብረት ኮሚሽን ሊቀመንበር ሆኖ የሚመጣውን ግለሰብ ለማወቅ የምርጫ ክርክር የሚደረግበትን ደቂቃዎችን ወስደን ሰፊ ውይይት እያደረግንበትን ያለውን ትንታኔ እየተከታተላችሁ ነው ህክማ this is your time
Thank you so much once again, Salamon. So you are still watching the discussion that we are having with my colleagues and also Dr. Seifet Hagdale, and we are reflecting on different topics and insights as well regarding the African Union debate that is bound to be held in some minutes actually. So this debate aims to enhance, transparency and leadership selection, and the debate serves as a precursor to the African Union Commission elections in order to set, that is set actually for February 2025, where leaders will be elected to guide the African Union's operation and strategic objectives. So previously we were looking into the Agenda 2063 and its aspirations, and also what change would it make in order to achieve this aspiration of the African continent. So we are having some conversation with Dr. as well. So the African Union is said to play a pivotal role in the success of the 2063 agenda, which is a strategic framework aimed at transforming Africa into a global powerhouse of the future. So now let me forward a question to Dr. Seifa. So let me ask you, how can the person who is about to be elected after in some hours actually, who's going to have the debate with 3 candidates from these, or let's call them the African Union's decision makers, all right? So how can these decision makers enhance collaboration among African regions, or in order to achieve actually shared development aspirations?
As I said before, African Union is a reflection of its member states.
Yeah.
The member states are a mix of all BRICS. You know, there are peaceful countries, there are countries which are in war with themselves. There is internal strife like DRC in the Sahel region. So there are different, challenges in the continent. So what we expect from the coming chairperson is just to lay down, a strategy that which will give us, some kind of leverage just to learn from our own sister countries. As I mentioned before, there are countries which are democratic in the Western Africa, in the Western region, like we can mention like Senegal and Ghana, maybe some other as well. Also in the Southern Africa, I think most of them are most democratic countries. And in East Africa, we can mention Ethiopia and Kenya. They can be exemplary for other African countries. So these are the what we have to expect, from the future commissioners. They have to consolidate, different efforts. As I mentioned before, there is an issue of CFTA, which to bring, continental free trade agreements to practice, to fully implementation, at the continent level. Also with that experience, we have to look, free movement, among African citizens, and also goods, it's not only the people, also the goods also should move, from one end to the other. Also, we have to look at the visa regime, including Ethiopia. We have to implement, a visa-free and free movement to the whole continent. I think there are some exemplary countries in this regard. Madagascar, we can take Rwanda, Mauritius. They took, initiative, including Ghana.
Yeah.
You can travel without having a visa. So this is a positive development. So this coming chairman also should expedite, this process to the fullest. That's what I'm expecting.
Yeah, that's correct. So it's also very good to mention Ethiopia's role in the African Union aspirations. Ethiopia has been playing a great role in order to bring Africa together in different aspects like peacekeeping, economic, politics, and diplomacy as well, in so many regards. So let's talk specifically about today's debate, okay? And different conferences as well here in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. How does hosting specifically the African Union headquarters here in Addis Ababa impact, Ethiopia's political and also economic landscape? What do you think?
It's we are fortunate just to host such kind of prestigious election process in the country, since the headquarters of the African Union is based in Addis. And also, Ethiopia has been, playing, pivotal role since 1963 up to now, even the transition from OAU to AU. And we're hosting. Actually, this, it reminds me one thing. Ethiopia, we can't run for chairmanship, that. And since we are a hosting country, I think they have to change this proclamation, because we have to have, as any citizens, to run to chairmanship position. I don't know what the the requirement from this end. So that's what I'm expecting. So Ethiopia is playing, a crucial role in so many fronts. Yeah.
That's right. We'll keep raising different topics and I'll keep forwarding questions as well. Now, once again, we have on live transmission his report, Demis Makria, our colleague. So let me leave the stage for him as well right now. So Demis, what do you have to say?
Thank you very much, Hikma, once again. We're just a few minutes away to hear what the African Union Commission candidates will say to member states and to the general audience as well. So it's better to once again introduce who are the candidates for the African Union Commission chairmanship. I say one of the candidates is from Djibouti, Mohamed Ali Yusuf, who is a very seasoned diplomat serving in various responsibilities, previously serving 2 times in the Arab League and presently serving as a foreign minister for Djibouti. Another seasoned politician is from Kenya, Raila Amolo Odinga, who served as a former prime minister of Kenya and who also served within the AU structure in the past times. He's also one of the candidates. Today we are expecting to hear his words and his vision about Africa. And also another candidate from Madagascar, Richard Mandriato. He also presents his vision to African member states and of course to the global audience as well. As we say, Africa has already identified several key important agendas for the coming 50 years with Agenda 2063. This is a very comprehensive plan that includes economic, political, social and many other sector plans that Africa will follow along the coming 50 years. So when the candidates present their vision statement today, they will definitely touch several important points from this plan, and a panel of eminent African experts will definitely guide the process. And of course, it is in the coming February when head of governments and head of states will meet here at Addis Ababa for their 38th meeting. That will definitely be the time we're gonna know who will lead Africa Commission as a chairman. That will be the time that member states will definitely give their vote for the candidates. This debate will definitely give a clue about the vision statements of the candidates, and it will help to learn who has the best policy, who has the best vision for Africa in the coming times. And also it helps to engage the public. The process is participatory and some engagement from the public is also expected during the debate that will happen after a few minutes, of course. So the African Union Commission chairmanship is really a tough job, as the commissioner has a lot of responsibilities ranging from leading the continental body, financial and administrative staffs, up to representing the Africa continent in the global political and other landscapes as well. So candidates will present their vision, and it's a very tough job, as we said earlier. So far, 5 commissioners led Africa Union since the former Organization of Africa Unity transformed into Africa Union. That, of course, happened back in 2002. Now we're gonna see the 6th incoming chairperson for this continental body, as Africa aspires more in terms of silencing guns and building peace and democracy and building prosperity across all member states. It's a very high time for the commissioner to pacify some regions that have peace issues, and it also has mandates in terms of building economies across all the 5 regions, be it East, West, South, North, or Central region of Africa. So the candidates will definitely touch several important points. So after a few minutes, we will definitely hear what they have to present to African member states and of course to the global audience. The world is expecting who will carry Africa forward, and this debate will definitely give us a clue about that. That is all what I can say for now, Hikma. And I will bring you updates following all the process.
Well, thank you so much once again, Demis Makrel, for your insights, and we're going to continue looking into different topics, right?
Thank you very much. እናመሰግናለን እንቀጥላለን ሂክማም ከዶክተር ጋርም ሚኖረን ቆይታ የሚቀጥል ነው የሚሆነው የተወደዳችሁ የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን ታሪካዊውን የአፍሪካ ህብረት ኮሚሽን ሊቀመንበር የእጩዎች ምርጫ ቅስቀሳን የተመለከተ ቆይታን በያላችሁበት እየተካተላችሁ ትገኛላችሁ ሰፋ ያሉ ቆይታዎችን ሰፋ ያሉ ሐሳቦችን ለትንታኔ የሚቀርቡ ጉዳዮችንም ያጋራናችሁ ምን ቆይ ነው የሚሆነው ሮዞዳንቺ እስኪ ልመለስ የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን ፓን አፍሪካኒዝም የአፍሪካ ህብረትና የአፍሪካ አንድነት ድርጅት ብዙ መቼም ታሪካዊ የሚያሳስራቸው ሰፊ ጉዳዮች አሉ በያስባለሁኝና ከዛ ቋያ ምን ማለት እንችላለን
እንግዲህ እስካሁን ያልነው ብዙ ይመስላል ግን ትንሽ ነው ምክንያቱም ኢትዮጵያ ለአፍሪካ ህብረት ካደረገችው አስተዋጽኦ የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን ደግሞ ለህብረቱ ካደረገው አስተዋጽኦና አጠቃላይ ኢትዮጵያ እንደ ሀገር ለአህጉሩ አጠቃላይ ያደረገችው አስተዋጽኦ ትልቅ እንደሆነ ይታወቃል እኛ በወፍ በረር እንደው ጥቂቱን ባለን ሰዓት ብቻ ያነሳን ስለሆነ ነው እንጂ ኢትዮጵያ እንደ ሀገር ለአፍሪካ አህጉር ትልቅ ሚና ትልቅ ባለውለታ የሆነች ሀገር እንደሆነች ይታወቃል ቀደም ሲል ደጋግመናል የፓን አፍሪካኒዝም እንቅስቃሴን እንዲቀጣጣል በማድረግ ረገድ ጥቁሮች ነፃነት ይገባቸዋል ነፃ የሆኑ አህጉር ሊሆን ይገባል በማለት ረገድ ሰፊ ጥረቶችን ስታደርግ ቆይታለች በነገራችን ላይ በርካታ የጥቁር አፍሪካን ነፃነት ትግላቸው ውስጥ በማሰልጠን ጭምር ነበር አስተዋጽኦ ስታደርግ የነበረው ስልጠናዎችን በመስጠት እንዴት እንደሚታገሉ ጭምር በመስጠት ረገድ ኃላፊነቶቿን ስትወጣ ነበር በነገራችን ላይ ኢትዮጵያ ለአፍሪካ ህብረት ወይም ደግሞ ለቀደመው የአፍሪካ አንድነት ድርጅት መመስረት ትልቅ አስተዋጽኦ እንደነበራት ይታወቃል የአስተዋጽኦ ሁለቱም ቡድን በማግባባት ረገድ ለምስረታው ትልቅ አስተዋጽኦ አድርጋለች ከዛ በኋላ በነበሩ አመታትም ከፍተኛ የሆነ አስተዋጽኦ ስትወጣ ቆይታለች እንደው ይህ የአፍሪካ አንድነት ድርጅት በነበረው ሂደት ውስጥ በአመራር ደረጃ የነበሩት እንዲሁም ደግሞ ኮሚሽን ከሆነ በኋላ ህብረት ወደ ህብረት ካደገ ደረጃ ምን ያህል አስተዋጽኦ አድርጋለች የሚለውን እንዲሁም ደግሞ አጠቃላይ የሆነውን ሂደት ደግሞ ጥቂት መረጃዎችን ለተመልካቾች እናድርስና የኤዩ ወይም ደግሞ የወቅቱ የአፍሪካ አንድነት ድርጅት ማለት ከ1963 ሲመሰረት እስከ 2001 የነበረው በዋና ጸሐፊ ደረጃ የሚታይ ነበር አሁን ደግሞ ከ2002 ከምስረታው በኋላ ከአፍሪካ ህብረት ምስረታ በኋላ ደግሞ የኮሚሽን ሊቀመንበርነት ሆኖ ወይም ደግሞ ኮሚሽነር ሆኖ ቆይቷል ማለት ነው ነገር ግን ወደ ኋላ እንመለስ 1963 በኋላ የነበሩትን ኢትዮጵያዊውን ክፍሌ ወዳጆን በቀዳሚነት እናገኛቸዋለን እኚህ ሰው በዋና ጸሐፊነት የመሩ ሰው ናቸው የአፍሪካ አንድነት ድርጅትን እነ ዲያሎ ቴሊ እነ ጓዞ ኢካንጋኪ እነ ዊሊያም አቴኬ እነ ኤዲያም ኮጆና እነ ፒተር ኦኑ ትልልቅ የሆነ ስም ያላቸው በአፍሪካ እንቅስቃሴ ውስጥ በአፍሪካ የነጻነት ትግል ውስጥ በፓን አፍሪካኒዝም እንቅስቃሴ ውስጥ እጅግ ስማቸውን አጉልተን የምናነሳቸው ናቸው እነ ሳሊ መሐመድ ሳሊምና እና ማራይሴም እነዚህም በኦኤዩ ወይም ደግሞ በአፍሪካ አንድነት ድርጅት ትልቅ ዋና ጸሐፊ በመሆን ሚናቸውን የተወጡ ናቸው ወደዚህኛው ስንመጣ በተለይ ወደ 2002 የአፍሪካ ህብረት ምስረታ ስንመጣ ከአንድነት ድርጅት የበለጠ ቀጠናዊ ውህደቱን የሚያሳልጠው ከአፍሪካ አንድነት ድርጅት ህብረቱ ይሻላል በሚል አፍሪካውያን በሙሉ ድምጽ ደግፈው ወደ ህብረትነት ሲያድግ ደግሞ 2002 ላይ አማራይሴን እናገኛቸዋለን ምክንያቱም ቀደም ባለው ጊዜ የዋና ጸሐፊነት ቦታንም ተክተው ሲሰሩ ስለነበረ ማለት ነው እኚህ ሰው ኮትዲቯራዊ ናቸው የውጭ ጉዳይ ሚኒስትር በመሆን እንዲሁም ደግሞ በተባበሩት መንግስታት ድርጅት የቋሚ መልእክተኛ በመሆን ጭምር አገልግሎታቸው ነበረ ህብረቱ ኮሚሽን በመሆን ታዲያ ከ2002 ከተቀየረበት ለአንድ አመት ያህል እስከ 2003 ድረስ አገልግለዋል ከሳቸው ቀጥሎ የምናገኛቸው አልፋ ኡመር ኩራሬ ናቸው እኚህ ሰው ማላዊ ዜግነት የነበራቸው ናቸው ማሊን በፕሬዝዳንትነት በማገልገልም ከ2003 እስከ 2008 ድረስ የአፍሪካ ህብረትን በኮሚሽነርነት ሲመሩ ቆይተዋል ጂንፒንግ በሀገር ጋቦናዊ ናቸው ብዙዎቻችን እናስታውሳቸዋለን ጠንካራ ዲፕሎማት እንደነበሩ ይነሳላቸዋል እኚህ ሰው ታዲያ ከ2008 እስከ 2012 የአፍሪካ ህብረት ኮሚሽነር በመሆን አገልግለዋል ከ2012 እስከ 2017 በርካቶች ካሜራችን የማይጠፉት ፖለቲከኛ ናቸው ዲላሚኒ ዙማ በሴትነትም የምናገኛቸው በታሪክ አጋጣሚ ሳቸው ነው እንግዲህ አፍሪካ ለሴት ያለውን አስተዋጽኦ በሂደት ማሳደግ አለበት 2063 ዋና አጀንዳ መሆን አለበት የሚባለው ለዛ ጭምር ነው ሀገራቸው የደቡብ አፍሪካዊ ዜግነት የነበራቸው ናቸው የውጭ ጉዳይ ሚኒስትር በመሆን አገልግለዋል የጤና ሚኒስትር በመሆን አገልግለዋል የሀገር ውስጥ ሚኒስትር በመሆንም አገልግለዋል ጠንካራ አመራር በመሆንም እንደዚሁ እንዳገለገሉ ዲላሚኒ ዙማ ይነሳላቸዋል ያሁኑ ለሁለት ተርም ያገለገሉት ከ2017 እስከ 2024 የምናገኛቸው ሙሳ ፋቂ መሐመድ ናቸው ቻዳዊ ናቸው እንግዲህ ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር የነበሩ በውጪ ጉዳይም እንደዚሁ ተመሳሳይ የሆነ ግልጋሎት የነበራቸው በሀገራቸው በጥብቅናም የሚታወቁ ሰው ናቸውና እነዚህ ሁሉ የአፍሪካ ህብረት ኮሚሽነር በመሆን አገልግሎታቸውን ሲሰጡ ነበር አሁን ላይ ደግሞ እንግዲህ ሶስት ተወዳዳሪዎች ከማዳጋስካር ከጅቡቲ እንዲሁም ደግሞ ከኬንያ የምናቃቸው አሁን ያወራንላቸው ያለኑ የመጨረሻ የቀጥታ ስርጭታቸውን ክርክርና ንግግር የሚያደርጉበት የሚወያዩበትን እነሱ ደግሞ በቀጣይ 4 አመታት ከዛም አልፎ በሁለት ተርም 8 አመታትም ይዘልቅ ይሆናል ማን ያውቃል የያዙት የትኩረት አቅጣጫ እንግዲህ የሚያስመርጣቸው ከሆነ እስከዛም ይዘልቁ ናቸው
ግሩም ነው ሮዝ ጥሩ ሐሳቦችን ነው ያጋራሽን ያለሽው የተወደዳችሁ ታላቁን አህጉራዊ ሁነት የአፍሪካ ህብረት ኮሚሽን ሊቀመንበር የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን ለመላው ኢትዮጵያ ለመላው አፍሪካና ለመላው ዓለም ከደቂቃዎች በኋላ ዋነኛውን ግብ እንግዲህ በቀጥታ ስርጭት በሁሉም አማራጮቹ ማለትም በኢቢሲ.ስትሪም በኢቢሲ ወርልድ በፌስቡክ በትዊተር ወይ ደግሞ በኤክስ ገጹ እንደዚሁም በቲክቶክ በቀጥታ ስርጭት የሚያስተላልፍ ነው የሚሆነው ዶክተር ኢቢሲን ፓን አፍሪካኒዝም የአፍሪካ አንድነት ድርጅትና የአፍሪካ ህብረትን የሚያሳስሩ ብዙ ጉዳዮች አሉ እንግዲህ የአፍሪካ ድምጽ በመሆን ካንጋፋው የኢትዮጵያ ብሔራዊ ሬዲዮ አንስቶ የመጀመሪያውም የአፍሪካ አንድነት ድርጅት ሲመሰረት ለዓለም ለጥቁሮች ህዝብ ፋና ወጊ ሆኖ ብዙ ነገሮችን ያሳለፈ እንደመሆኑ መጠን ምን ያስተሳስራቸዋል ብለህ ምን ትለናለህ
አወል ብዙ ነገር ማለት ይችላል ቅድም ምናልባት ሮዛ ያነሳችው በአብዛኛው የአፍሪካ ሀገሮች ነፃ ከመውጣታቸው በፊት ኢትዮጵያ ብቸኛዋ የጥቁር ሀገር ነፃ ወጣ ወይም ነፃነቷን አስከብራ የኖረች ሀገር ስለነበረች የሚዲያውን መስክ የተቀላቀለችው ከብዙ አፍሪካ ሀገሮች ቀደም ብላ ነው ምናልባት በዚህ ረገድ የምንጠቅሳቸው ከኛ ጋር በተመሳሳይ ደረጃ ያሉት ኢጂፕትና ሳውዝ አፍሪካ ናቸው ከዛ ቀጥሎ በኋላ ደግሞ ላይቤሪያን መጥቀስ እንችላለን ግን ፎርቹኔትሊ ቀደም ሮዛ ያነሳችው 3 ግሩፕ ነበረ ሞንሮቪያ ካዛብላንካ ኤንድ ብራዛቪል የሚባል ግሩፕ ነበርና ሁለቱ በኋላ ኮንሶሊዴት አድርገዋል ወደ 1963 ሲመጡ ግን ከዛ በኋላ ልክ ሲመጡ የተቀበላቸው ኢቲቪ ነው ኢትዮጵያን እንደምታውቀው በውስን አቅም በውስን ሆቴሎች በውስን እንትን ግን ምን ያህል ትጋትና ምን ያህል ኮሚትመንት መሰጠት እንደነበረን የምታየው በዛ ነው እነዚህን የተለያዩ አፍሪካ ሀገሮች ነፃ ያወጡትም ባይዘው ነፃ ያልወጡትም ነው የመጡት አወራቶች የቀርቧቸው ነበሩት እዚህ ላችሁ እንደሆነ አንዳንድ መረጃዎች ስናነብ ሳውዝ አፍሪካ ተካፍላለች በኤንሲ በኩል ሌሎቹም በነፃ አውጪዎቻቸው በኩል እነ ዛኑፒኤፍ እነ ጄምፔሌ እነ ፍሪሊሞ እነዚህ በሞላ በእንትን ውስጥ ተሳትፈዋልና ይሄን በሞላ ሆስት ያደረገች ሀገር ናት የነሱን ደግሞ የዚህ የትግል እንትን የሚያንጸባርቅበት መድረክ ነበረ ትዝላችሁ እንደሆነ ጧት ስንነሳ ስለ አፓርታይድ ኢቲቪ የሚሆን ሬዲዮ በየቀኑ ነበር የሚነግረንና ልክ ፕሪቶሪያ መንግስት ወደ ደቡብ ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ያለ እስኪመስለን ድረስ ነበር ያስረዱን የነበረው ከዛ በኋላ የተቋቋመው ከ5 ከ10 አመት በኋላ ዩትራ የሚባል ሴኔጋል ውስጥ የነበረ አንድ የሚዲያ ነበረ ለዚህ ለአፍሪካን ዩኒየን ለኦኤዩ ኮሚቴ የሆነ የሚሰራ ድርጅት ብዙም አልሄደም እና ይሄንን ይዘት ይዞ የቀጠለው እንግዲህ ኢቲቪ ነው እስካሁን አሁን ስማችሁን ለውጣችሁ ኢቢኤስ ኢቢሲ ኢትዮጵያን
ብዙ ሚዲያሞች ስላሉ
yes ኢቢሲ ሆናችኋል አሜን እንትኑን አይለውጠውም ኦኤዩም ወደ ኤዩ ስለተለወጠ የእናንተ መለወጥ ብዙ እንትን የሚል አይደለም ግን በፓን አፍሪካኒዝም እንዳልኩት የሚያስተሳስረው ነው ምንም ጥያቄ የለም የተሰጠው ኮሚትመንት በጣም
ግሩም ነው እሱ ነው ያው የአፍሪካ አህጉር ልሳን የአፍሪካ አህጉር ድምጽ ሆነን መቆየታችን
ይቅርታ ይሄንን ነገር actually ለኢንተርናሽናል ኦዲየንሱ እሱ እንዲናገር ስለምፈልግ I would like to talk about the role of ETV or Ethiopian Broadcasting Corporation today and its role for the Pan-African movement since yesterday. Like I cannot even count back. So what is your view on that? So you can share it with us. You already talked with in it like in Amharic, but I wanted you to say it in English and you share your insight on this.
No, that's great. You know, it's a pleasure. Look, the Pan-African movement started in Latin America. You know, Garvey and other Du Bois. These are the founders. And immediately they took over by Emperor Haile Selassie, Jomo Kenyatta, Julius Nyerere, Kenneth Kaunda and other leaders. And one of the things which we have to appreciate is Haile Selassie, I mean King Haile Selassie, they took it as a personal cause and they brought back when they returned from England. So that was a connection between the Pan-Africanism and the Ethiopian, what do you call it, DNA. You shouldn't forget Pan-Africanism started based on the Adwa victory. You know, Adwa victory gave them, you know, a momentum. You know, black people can be conscientized, can be free, liberated, and they can be, you know, lead their. Ethiopian television played, you know, pivotal role in that regard. Thank you so much.
Doctor.
So you can take over.
Yes. Thank you. እንግዲህ ተመልካቾቻችን ወደ አፍሪካ ህብረት በቀጥታ ነው የምንወስዳችሁ።
Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen.
Honorables Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres,
Honorable Ministers,
la vice-présidente de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Madame Monique,
Dr. Monique Tanza Bagonna, distinguished commissioners of the African Union, distinguished members of the panel of eminent Africans, Your Excellencies, Honorable Ambassadors, dear audience and televiewers on the various television channels on the continent. All of you who are actually following this debate on the various platforms, my name is, I come from the Algerian National Television, and it's really an honor for me to be moderating the Majadala Africa, and we are actually going live from the African Union Commission headquarters here in Addis Ababa in the Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, with of course the potential candidate vying for the chairmanship of the Commission. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be moderating in French, and I am pleased to say that I'll be sharing this platform with my dear sister from Ghana, Anita Eskin. Good evening, Anita.
Gentlemen, honorable ministers, Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Her Excellency Monique Nzabaganwa, African Union Commissioners, members of the panel of eminent Africans, Excellencies, Ambassadors, and our esteemed audience both here in person and live across all 55 member states of the African Union. We have immense pleasure to come to you live from the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Addis Ababa specifically, where we are here from the African Union headquarters, bringing you what we call a historic moment. 3 esteemed candidates, each vying for the position position of chairperson of the African Union will debate tonight in front of the world, and indeed historic it is.
Mesdames et messieurs,
ladies and gentlemen, during the Mjadala debate, it is going to last 2 hours and we're going to be live, and we are going to introduce the various candidates for the post of chairmanship, and then we are going to discuss several burning issues on the African continent, and they will be answering several questions that have actually been prepared by an independent panel, so that at the end of the day, you Africans will get to know what the vision of these three candidates are for this continent. We want to see this continent taken forward, and so for each candidate, we're going to have 5 minutes. 5 minutes that will be respected by each of the three candidates. And so first of all, the candidates would have 5 minutes each to present themselves, introduce themselves, and give us their vision statement for the African Union Commission. And they will tell us how they expect us to see the African Union carry out or meet their aspirations. And later on, we will take up the questions in this debate. 4 minutes will be given to each candidate to address all the questions. And at the end, each candidate will have 2 candidates for their closing statements.
Africa Leadership Debate will see our 3 esteemed candidates before you, basically sharing their ideas and their ambitions as far as the aspirations of Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, are concerned. And ladies and gentlemen, the rules are very simple. Each one of our candidates will have an opportunity to present themselves, of course, and their ambition as well, and they will make these presentations for all of 5 minutes each. Afterwards, we go into the first round of questions, second, third, and fourth round of questions. Each candidate has 4 minutes to answer the questions in each of these rounds. And now, ladies and gentlemen, at the end, we have a 2-minute closing remark from each one of our candidates. Now that you understand why you're here and the rules have been set before you, also to mention that the questions you will be hearing tonight, the questions our esteemed candidates will be receiving, are questions created by a completely independent panel in order to promote peace, fairness, and transparency among us all. Ladies and gentlemen, with that established, allow me to welcome to the stage Ambassador Konjit, who is the chair of the African Union's panel of eminent Africans and the host of our gathering here tonight, to share the significance of the election process of the African Union. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ambassador Konjit.
Mesdames et messieurs,
ladies and gentlemen, we are now very pleased to call on Her Excellency Ambassador Konjit Sine Georges. She is going to give us her opening remarks.
Excellencies, candidates for the post of chairmanship of the African Commission, Excellencies, ambassadors, fellow Africans, ladies and gentlemen. Heartfelt greetings to our live audience here at the African Union Commission in Addis Ababa and all African citizens watching this debate. On behalf of the panel of eminent Africans, it is an honor and a pleasure to welcome you all to the 2024 Mjadala Africa Leadership Debate. Tonight's event represents a critical milestone in our collective journey towards achieving the Africa we want under Agenda 2063. I must say, now more than ever before, We need a united Africa and an effective AU Commission. The world we live in is at a crossroads with many complex situations. This continent of ours has gone through numerous challenges in its history. Its people have paid huge sacrifice to be where we are today. The trajectory of going out of colonial legacy to move to the Africa we want stands as testimony. We understand that our dreams and aspirations will not take us anywhere unless we come together. I had the immense pleasure as a young cadet of having seen the birth of the organization, the OAU, the Organization of African Unity, and followed its transformation to the African Union. I have seen their highs and lows. But one thing is for sure, if the African Union had not existed, we would have had to invent it. We have a long way to go to reach the Africa we want by 2063. The African Union Commission, our only vehicle to take us to our destination, has to be strong and fit for the purpose. We have to face together our current and future challenges, narrow inequalities, build more just and inclusive societies, resolve conflicts, in short, provide to our citizens what they are expecting. It has become more and more clear that the African Union has a rightful place on the global stage. It has become a partner that can't be easily pushed aside. We are claiming our place where decisions are made regarding our continent. Africa is coming out of age. This evening, the three candidates to the post of the chairpersonship of the African Union Commission are going to participate in a debate. I regret that the fact that our continent couldn't also have a female candidate and place the African Union Commission on the right side of history. This is a serious homework we have to take into consideration. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I have the greatest honor and privilege to thank the general public for participating and for their interest in this process by sending questions. I would also like them to know that the concerns expressed by the public are taken care of in the questions. And now, ladies and gentlemen and excellencies, I have the duty and the honor to hand over to the moderators the questions sealed envelope. Thank you very much for your attention.
Merci infiniment.
Thank you very much, Excellency Konji Senior Judges. Dear participants, what we're going to see here, what Madam Kanji Senior Judges is going to do now, is to actually give to us an envelope that contains all the questions that we are going to ask. That is, either Anita or me will be asking the potential candidates who are vying for the position of the chairperson of the African Union Commission. Thank you very much, Your
Ladies and gentlemen, as Fatima has outlined, Her Excellency the Ambassador has handed over the questions that have been curated by an independent panel. As we mentioned, there will be 4 rounds, and here in my hand we have 4 envelopes sealed, and these envelopes will only be opened at the forefront of each one of the rounds.
Merci infiniment, Anita.
Thank you very much, Anita. Ladies and gentlemen, at the moment, we are going to introduce the various candidates vying for the position of Chairperson of the African Union Commission. His Excellency محمود Ali Yusuf, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Djibouti. Your Excellency, His Excellency Mr. Raila Odinga, former Prime Minister of Kenya, and the third candidate will be His Excellency Richard James, the former Foreign Minister of Madagascar.
It is with pride and honor that we invite our 3 esteemed candidates to now take their position on the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor of welcoming His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, Foreign Affairs Minister, Djibouti. Also joining us will be His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga, former Prime Minister, Kenya. And we have His Excellency Richard J. Randyamandrato, who is from Madagascar. Ladies and gentlemen, with humility, I ask that you give them another round of applause. These are our candidates for the chairperson position of the African Union.
Messieurs, bonsoir. Merci d'être parmi nous.
Good evening, honorable gentlemen. You're welcome to this event, and you're all live on this debate. Millions of Africans are watching the Njandala debate. And like we said earlier on, each of you would have 5 minutes to introduce yourself. So we are going to start with you, His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf of Djibouti. Honorable Raila Odinga, Honorable Richard James, Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, ladies and gentlemen, African citizens, good evening. My name is Mahmoud Ali Yusuf. I am 59 years old. I'm married with 8 children. Minister of Foreign Affairs of Djibouti for the past 20 years. And I am standing before you this evening to give you a brief presentation of my vision for Africa's future. Africa is at a crossroads of its evolution. Of course, it is actually lagging behind other continents in terms of peace and security, integration, and socio-economic development. But Africa is moving forward. Africa is getting itself organized, and Africa is doing its level best to be on the international stage. The Africa that we want, an integrated, peaceful, and prosperous one, is first the choice of our people before the choice of its leaders. The founding fathers of the OAU in 1963 and to our leaders today who actually established the African Union more than 20 years, all the way down to the average citizen, we are trying to consolidate our diversity and to cement the unity of the continent. As we adopted Agenda 2063, and also the five plans, the African Union actually has a roadmap to achieve its goals. And the African Union is supposed to coordinate and also to implement the decisions of the policy organs. And if I am elected as chairperson of the Commission, I am going to make sure that we work together, and we actually have to go beyond the 37% of the work that we have done so far. In terms of peace and security and early warnings, through the Continental Early Warning System, we are going to strengthen the Peace and Security Council, which has to be more proactive, and the member states will also have to be responsible. The panel of the wilds would be given the means to work, to continue its mediation work, and I will do my level best to make sure that resources are mobilized to make the African standby force operational, and we can also use the African Peace Fund. And with the relevant bodies, I am going to continue or to carry out the reforms which have not been implemented today. And I'm going to diversify our financing, and I will do my best to make sure that African Union has its own financing sources. And I'm also going to boost intra-African trade, which should go beyond 80%. And I will bring down all the non-tariff barriers and facilitate the free movement of goods and persons across the continent. The place of Africa on the international stage will be one of my greatest priorities. And I'm going to be the voice of the African people across the world. The transformation of our continent will be done with our youth and our women, of course, and the diaspora too, through knowledge, technology, in agriculture, in industry, and in the service sector. The Africa that we want, ladies and gentlemen, is an Africa of peace, integration, and prosperity. And this has to go through the political will and the solidarity of the African people. And thanks to the support of our people. And so as I stand in front of you today, and in front of all the millions of Africa, I want to tell you that if I'm given the chance of being the chairperson of this commission, I will do my best to make sure that our continent shines on the international stage. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite His Excellency Raila Odinga to share his opening remarks. Your Excellency, you have 5 minutes.
Your Excellency Ambassador Konjit,
صاحبة السعادة السفيرة كونجيت الزميلية هنا صاحب المعالي محمود علي يوسف
and His Excellency Mr. Richard, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Africa, hamjambo, bonsoir, salam alaikum, rahmatullah ta'ala wa barakatuh. Boa noite. I am delighted to have opportunity today to stand before you as the son of Africa. I was born in Kenya, but I'm told that my grandparents came from the Sudan. I am a father of 4, a grandfather of 5, and a husband of 1 that I know of. I am an engineer by profession, and I have been an academic. I have also been a public servant. I've been a member of parliament. I've also been a prime minister and also leader of opposition. In those capacities, I've tried to do my best, and I've gained a lot of experience in terms of management of public affairs. I stand here as an Pan-Africanist and an Afro-optimist. 2 months ago, that is on the 21st of October, this year, we were here in Addis Ababa. We had been invited as members of the families of the founding fathers of the African Union to come and witness the reopening of the Africa Hall. That's the hall where the OAU was launched in 1963. And we're happy to be here with Madam Ambassador Konjit, who was there as a young girl at that time. It is now 61 years since the launch of the Organization of African Unity. And at that time, if you read the speeches of the founding fathers on that day, they were very passionate, and all of them talked about African unity. Where there was a difference was, when do we achieve this unity? There are those who, under the school of thought, that the unity now. There are those who said, no, we need to be gradual in this. Let us first build the building blocks, the regional unions, which will eventually translate into formation of the African Union as a whole. But now we have they came up 50 years later with Vision 2063, which now hopes to get Africa united, one union government by 2030, and move on to attain the vision, the wishes of the founding fathers of Africa. I say that I have the experience. I've been part of this movement for changing the continent. You know that some achievements have been made. Africa is now completely liberated, but there's still work to do. And I believe that I have what it takes to get us where we want to do. In the field of education, in the field of health, in the field of value addition to the abundant wealth that we have on the continent, in the field of trade, inter-African trade. I have acted as the African Union High Representative on infrastructure. And in this I know that we have very comprehensive programs in PIDA, Program for Infrastructure Development of the continent. What remains is action. And what I want to promise the African people is that I am going to lead from the front to ensure that we achieve the visions of the founding fathers of our continent. I thank you.
Merci infiniment.
Thank you very much, the candidate from Kenya, Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. Now we're going to listen to His Excellency Randra Mandrato from Madagascar.
Excellences, et chers invités,
Excellencies, distinguished guests, to this very important event for the African people. As you can see, we are 3 candidates, not 2 candidates, like you see on social media. And we are standing in front of you today to convince you of how serious we are and how seriously we're going to work towards the African Union involvement. So who am I? I am one out of 1.2 billion Africans. Just like you, I started from very humble beginnings, from the very beginning. I was a young consultant. I was a researcher in microfinance sector, and I traveled across many African capitals, about 41 countries in the year 1989. Just like you, it was difficult for me to find a job, but I did find a job which was at the level of my capacity. Just like you, I actually built my career based on my conviction that each African citizen can actually survive. And just like you, today I am standing before you because I believe that I have the confidence and the trust of the president of Madagascar, and I am proud. I am proud that I was actually supported by my country. Just like you, I've actually come a long way, and I have actually gotten to this level where I have the got the trust of my government. I was Minister of the Economy in my country because that is my specialty. I was also Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I'm here today standing before you to talk about Africa. Africa is actually the second dynamic economic region in the world, and Africa is actually making progress. And things are changing in our favor. And recently I read about the funding of the African Development Bank funding several projects in Africa, and this is quite promising for the continent. The World Bank also has increased its envelope, funding 75 countries, 75 less developed countries. And I also think that we have funding for small states. Small states, that's not a pejorative term, but there is an idea that I want to share with you. Africa is moving. Is first of all the states that are actually seeing a 3.4% economic growth per year, but I think we should do more than that. And then we have our own house. Here we are, the African Union, which is our home. And what I have noticed is that there is an Africa which is actually moving forward, which is a dynamic Africa, and then there is the African Union, which doesn't really have the capacity for it to move forward. I am here before you today because I think it is indispensable and it is a must that those who want to have the quality, competence, conviction, of course today, I think that I have those qualities, and I hope that I've been able to convince you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Richard Randyamandrato from Madagascar. And now, ladies and gentlemen, this officially brings us to the beginning of our debate, where we move into the first round of questions. But before then, allow us to reiterate the rules and the guidelines for you, our esteemed candidates. You each have 4 minutes to answer the questions that will be posed, and you will each answer the absolute same question. Your Excellencies, with respect and humility, if you surpass the 4-minute mark, myself or my colleague will have to interrupt your response. And this eventually brings us to this moment, ladies and gentlemen, where my colleague and I will open the envelope for the first round of questions.
Thank you, Anita. Merci
thank you very much, Anita, and thank you very much to our candidates who have just introduced themselves to yourselves, members of this public. As my sister has just reminded us, we are going to open, ladies and gentlemen, the first round of questions. We are going to remind all of us that the questions were drafted in English and in French. They were drafted by an independent panel. The envelopes were handed over to us a few minutes ago by Her Excellency Madam Konjit Sine Georges, and immediately with Anita we're going to select an envelope. Anita, you're going to ask the first question.
Esteemed candidates, your question in English, and after that my colleague here, Fatima, will translate in French. Translating Africa's natural wealth into continental prosperity. Africa has everything it needs to feed her people, educate her children, and take care of her health. Yet, the reality defies this. How will you turn the continent's resource wealth into tangible benefits, reducing debt, ensuring sustainable financing for the African Union, and enabling Africa to control its destiny economically? Also, how will you ensure that the African Continental Free Trade Area achieves its goals?
Excellences, Messieurs les candidats, la question en langue française. L'Afrique a tout ce dont elle a besoin pour nourrir sa population éduquer ses enfants et prendre soin de leur santé. Mais la réalité défie cela. Comment allez-vous transformer la richesse en ressources du continent en avantages tangibles, réduire la dette, assurer un financement durable pour l'Union africaine et permettre à l'Afrique de contrôler son destin économique? En outre, comment allez-vous garantir que la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine atteigne ses objectifs? Et on commence avec le premier candidat de Madagascar. Excellence, vous avez 4 minutes pour y répondre.
This question talks about the hopes, and the first hope is that is contained in Agenda 2063, and we are going to just try and respond to this question. Perhaps not answer it completely, because you can't answer it in just 4 minutes. You can't show academically what it is that we can do in order to respond to this aspiration. So aspiration 1 of Agenda 2063 is as follows: a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. Your question is huge. How can a chairperson of the African Union Commission, with a very clear terms of responsibility, about 26 of those, and first of all, he or she has to demonstrate leadership characteristics, has to have administrative capacity, has to know protocol, has to be diplomatic. How can such a chairperson respond to such a huge question? I am an economist. I am a finance person by training. I do have some ideas to share. First of all, I can emphasize the importance of continuing to develop the economy at the continental level. You did mention our joint initiative about developing trade through, in theory, liberalization of trade, liberalization of the circulation of persons throughout our continent. In theory, I say, trade can effectively become a source of economic dynamism. I think I understand that we're at about 12.6% of commercial trade between African countries. This is very low. For a continent such as Europe, a continent such as America, they go up to more than 50%. So what we need to do is to continue to continue with the efforts that we're doing. There's already a secretariat at the ICFTA. A secretariat, the ICFTA is just a geographical zone. It is the geographical zone. We haven't yet attained this free circulation of trade. But if we manage to ensure that a free trade can happen, and can happen very quickly, it is very possible that we shall triple our performance in economic development. I am a farmer. I have a fish and chickens, and at a very small scale, and I support young farmers. And it's very difficult to pretend that one can have a good quality and one can sell the products to the neighbors. People are not able to really exhaust what is available in the market. But free trade is that. It is to learn how to master capital virtues, capitalism. Where do you find money, and what am I going to do to find the money? I think we need to start modestly. We need to start at the level of the local development, so that slowly by slowly, with support from the government and of course the support of the African Union, we shall then at the end ensure that all of the citizens, young, medium-aged, and especially women, can have the opportunity of participating in this large continental market. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Now I hand over the floor to you, Excellency Raila Odinga, first for your answer. 4 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Africa is, of course, the least developed continent by comparison. Look at economic statistics. But this is because there are historical reasons why Africa is where it is today. And we will say that Africa does not need to remain here. we need to develop Africa. There are several factors which work against Africa. For example, the international financial infrastructure has worked very much against Africa, because African countries have been made to borrow money at a very high rate of interest compared to other countries of the same status as the African countries. So we need to address the issue of rearranging the international financial infrastructure. That is, I think, one of the major starting points. Now, Africa is the richest continent on the planet Earth in terms of raw materials. But it's a paradox that Africa also is the poorest in terms of living conditions. We say that we need not remain for perpetually the source of raw materials for industrial west or east. That we need to do value addition to raw materials which are coming out of Africa before we export them. Then we've also said that Africa needs to trade more with itself. There's big potential. Like the African Development Bank today says that 7 out of the 20 fastest growing economies in this year are going to be African countries. They're much higher than Europe. We're only competing with Asia. So it is important that Africa enhances the trade with itself. The inter-African trade today stands at just mere 15%. Now we have the African Free Trade Area organization that was launched now 3 years ago, but not much has been achieved. Some of the reasons are issues that are actually solvable. The non-tariff barriers to trade that have been imposed by respective African countries. Things like standards, which are different from one country to the other country, making it difficult for goods to move freely across the borders. Then modalities of payment. And then there's the other issue of infrastructure. I worked for 5 years as the African Union High Representative on Infrastructure Development. And here is another problem, because goods cannot move freely because of lack of adequate infrastructure within the continent. Kenya exported tea to Ghana, and it took 3 months of tea to travel from Kenya to Ghana. We have major infrastructure projects, the high-speed continental railway, the inter-African highways, Cape to Cairo, Tunis to Cape, Dakar to Djibouti, Dakar, Lagos, Mombasa, and so on and so forth. All these need to be developed. Energy is another factor. Energy is too expensive, but we can reduce the cost of energy and go green in the continent.
Thank you so much, Excellency. Candidate from Kenya, et à présent, mesdames et messieurs.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the response from His Excellency, the candidate from Djibouti. When you talk about the riches of Africa, we often think about natural resources, and the riches of Africa begins with its people. We have 1.4 billion inhabitants on the continent, and more than 60% of this population is young between 0 and 25 years. The first wealth of this continent is in its people. We must have the capacity to think about how we can ensure that these people, this population, can benefit not only from the existing wealth, but also add value to that wealth. How can we go about that? Through universal education, quality education in our countries. We should have the capacity of offering our citizens a free education from the primary to the university levels, and ensure that this education is spread in all over the regions of our continent and of our country. We must remove the obstacles to education. The feminine population represents 50.2%. There are still cultural obstacles. There are obstacles to the education of girls. So we must concentrate on valorizing our human resources. And then we have fertile land. What are we doing with this fertile land? We are still in many countries using very archaic agriculture. It is time to begin to develop an agriculture that I would call modern. It does exist in many countries. Look, for example, at a country such as Rwanda. Tea and coffee are actually, there's value added locally. Countries such as Ghana, countries such as Cote d'Ivoire, cocoa is transformed locally. Now, these raw products that we sell without adding value, we must be able to add value locally so that we can increase the wealth and also create employment. The transformation of agricultural products is a priority. So today, agriculture in many countries uses biotechnology. It uses the drip system. It uses seeds that are modified, that are quality seeds. Ethiopia uses quality seeds in order to be able to produce maize. Today, Ethiopia produces maize and wheat because of these seeds that are quality seeds. It is important to think about transforming agricultural product in place that will ensure that the people can get out of food insecurity, ensure that there is a specialized agriculture. There has to be areas of specialized agriculture, and that, I would say, is one of the steps that will lead to ensuring that this world there can be at the benefit of the population. And then we come to natural resources. I acknowledge the work by President Museveni. He has said that he will not export petrol or gas as long as there will not be a refinery in Uganda. These are the examples from African leaders who take the destiny of the people in hand so that they can actually have value added locally. Now, trade, everybody knows that it is through trade that development happens. Look at China. China and all over the Chinese economy really target production and exportation. When you add value to our products, we can become exporters. Let me talk about tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers. That is not the problem. I think that the situation must be to, first of all, protect our wealth by transforming them locally. Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf.
Of round one, where I'm happy to announce we have a 5-minute break, and after this break we come to round two. You have been tuned in to us here from the African Union headquarters here in Addis Ababa, and we are bringing to you Mjadala Africa Leadership Debate 2024 with our 3 esteemed candidates vying for the position of chairperson of the African Union.
Merci infiniment, chers candidats, d'avoir répondu à la première question du premier round. Mesdames et messieurs, il reste encore 3 rounds auxquels vont participer les candidats et on va marquer tout de suite une courte pause de 5 minutes. On revient juste après. Merci beaucoup de nous prêter attention.
The right to proper health care, good food and nutrition. African countries, in the implementation of their national priorities under Agenda 2063, have made commitments to eradicate poverty in our generation, build inclusive and sustainable economies with shared prosperity for all, through social and economic transformation by focusing on the following areas. Sustainable and inclusive economic growth that reduces poverty and leads to increased income levels. Equality and decent jobs. Value addition in agricultural products and growth of agro-business and industries. Human capital development. Skills revolution in science, technology and innovation. Gender development, youth empowerment and employment generation for youth and women. social security and protection for all people, and infrastructural development. Good governance supported by capable institutions. Manufacturing-based industrialization. Promotion of culture, arts and sports. Peace and security. Let us unite to build the Africa we want.
Of the African Union Commission. Let me introduce them to you. The first candidate, His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, Djibouti. The second candidate, His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga, Kenya. The third candidate, His Excellency Richard Randriamandrato, Madagascar. And now, let's take a deeper look into their profiles.
People's rights is implemented are the judicial, human rights and legal organs of the African Union, namely the African Union Commission on International Law, the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, the African Court on Human and People's Rights, the African Union Advisory Board Against Corruption, and principally the African Commission on Human and People's Rights.
Bienvenue encore une fois parmi nous de la Commission de l'Union africaine à Addis Abeba. On est heureuse de vous accompagner ce soir pour la modération de ce débat. Je rappelle pour ceux qui viennent de se joindre à nous qu'on a pu suivre il y a quelques instants un premier round durant lequel les candidats ont répondu à la première question avec bien sûr Excellence Monsieur Mahamadou Ali Youssouf, ministre des Affaires étrangères du Djibouti, Excellence Monsieur Raila Amolo Odinga, ancien Premier ministre du Kenya, enfin Excellence Monsieur Richard Randriamandrato, ancien ministre des Affaires étrangères de Madagascar, pardon, et on revient tout de suite pour le deuxième round, Anita.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Anita.
about to start the round 2 of our debate here, Mjadala Africa Leadership Debate, where we are witnessing and listening to 3 esteemed candidates, each vying for the chairperson position of the African Union Commission. Earlier on, we heard their thoughts on issues such as the African Continental Free Trade Area, and now we're moving into the second round. And if you're just joining us, we're beaming live from the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Addis Ababa to be specific.
Et pour ouvrir le deuxième round, mesdames et messieurs, honorables assistances, nous allons également ouvrir une deuxième enveloppe pour découvrir la question qui a été préparée par le panel indépendant pour ce débat. Je rappelle également, mesdames et messieurs, que les questions sont rédigées dans les 2 langues, la langue française, ensuite la langue anglaise. Alors, Excellence, chers candidats, votre question est la suivante.
Is this in spite of the hopes of the African Union to silence the arms between now and 2030, the conflicts continue to take place. How would you go about proposing African solutions so that you can ensure that there is a prevention, management, and a resolution that are effective and sustainable of conflicts? And how would you accelerate the advance of Africa towards a permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council? That's your question.
The AU's aspiration to silence guns by 2020, conflicts persist. How will you foster African solutions to ensure effective and durable conflict prevention, management, and resolution? And how do you plan to accelerate Africa's push for a permanent seat on the United Nations Security Council? Ladies and gentlemen, our esteemed candidates, the first to answer this round of questions will be His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga. You have 4 minutes, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. Well, silencing the guns on the continent. As you know that in 2013, the AU met and passed a resolution to silence the guns by 2020. We are today in 2024, and the guns are not silent. They're very loud, roaring all over the continent. We need to address the causative factors of these conflicts. There are some which are conflict caused by poverty or deprivation. Some of them by conflict within the society, again, things like ethnicity and so on. Some of them are externally influenced or promoted. Some are religious and so on. So there's not a common factor. But what you need to do is to address the causative factors which could translate into these conflicts throughout the continent. And this is what I will do myself. First, as you know that our African countries are not at the same levels of development. Those which are more developed, like for example in terms of governance, there are some areas where you have got exclusions of people, and as a result of this, some people move to use other means. We need to find a way of creating an environment of dialogue within our societies so that we can be able to prevent these differences, conflict ending up into violent confrontation between the various groups. We don't need to put a time span, but I'm sure that it is possible to end these conflicts and stop the guns by 2035, in my view. The other one is the issue of Africa's representation on the Security Council. This is something that has been long overdue. As you know, that the UN was formed at a time when most parts of Africa were colonies. And that's why the UN structure as today does not deal with the realities of the world today. And the situation where you have 5 countries sitting in the Security Council with veto powers, and Africa is not represented, a continent with 1.4 billion people, is not tenable and it's not accessible. And that's why I'm not going to talk about Africa's representation, but we're going to insist that Africa must get 2 permanent seats in the UN Security Council. This is only fair, because we are a continent of 55 sovereign nations. We cannot be excluded when Europe has got 3 permanent representations on the Security Council. Permanent representation with the veto powers is a must for Africa. And this I'm going to insist when I'm elected. If the heads of state of Africa sees fit that I should lead this, I will work together with all the leadership of the continent to ensure that the continent gets a fair treatment on the international scene.
Thank you so much, Excellency. Candidate from Kenya. Et maintenant, mesdames et messieurs.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the response from His Excellency, the candidate from Djibouti, His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf.
That Silencing the Guns is a flagship program, one of the 15 that our leaders have endorsed years ago. And then they put a number of mechanisms and structure around this flagship program so that peace becomes a reality on our continent. The first structure is the African Peace and Security Architecture. And then we have the strategy that we all know, Silencing the Guns. And to support this strategy, the African Union put in place a number of mechanisms. One of them is the Peace and Security Council. The other one is the Committee of Elders, the Committee of Chief of Staff. We have the Peace Fund. And we can rely on every kind of mechanism. So why is peace is not, let's say, a reality on the ground on our continent? There are a number of reasons. One of them is the political will of countries. We have to be outspoken and frank. We make decisions at the Peace and Security Council level. These decisions are not implemented. Our Peace and Security Council is not proactive. It is reacting to crises when they occur and happen. This has to change. And I'm sending a message to our member countries saying this has to change. The number 2 problem that we have to face is our standby forces. We have them on the papers. Of course, sometimes we can mobilize them, but they lack resources. We are still relying on foreign partnership for our resources. Let me give you an example. AMISOM. Since 2007, AMISOM has been financed by the European Union and the United Nations, up to 2.7 billion euros. Now, financial resources are critical. Why should we have the money so that we can operate on crisis ground on the continent? Because without money, we cannot deploy our standby forces. Without money, even the committee of mediators cannot go and discuss with the stakeholders. They sometimes wait for the tickets, the per diems, days and days and days. It's very critical that the Peace Fund, in which we have $400 million, that the Commission and the PRC, get to the compromise situation where that money could be used for peace on the continent. So far, only the interest of the 400 million are used. And I'm really shameful when I say, DRC have been given 1 million for peace, issues through this fund. And they have given to, I don't know, another country 1.5 million. It has to change. We need the authority from the member countries so that we can use this money, the $400 million, to keep peace on our continent. There are so many other bottlenecks that needs to be handled very quickly. But money is one of them. The Peace and Security Council mission is the second problem. And then we have a third one. This one also has to be underline very seriously. When a crisis happens, I give you the example of Somalia. I've been around for some time. I've been dealing with this problem for many years. When there is no unity of purpose between the countries around this country, neighboring countries, this country will never stand on its feet. That's what we are experiencing today in the Sudan. Hundreds of thousands of people have been killed, millions displaced. Neighboring countries are still fighting on the Sudan, and the African Union and IGAD are watching.
Sorry, sir, your time is up.
Okay, sorry, because I can talk hours about this issue.
No problem, sir. Thank you so much for your contribution. And ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, especially to our esteemed candidates, if you go beyond the time, I will be forced to interrupt, and I don't want to do that, so please forgive me. May we kindly have our last candidate, His Excellency Randir Mandrato, to respond to the question. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Faire taire les armes et
Silencing the guns and issues relating to peace and security in general actually are due to so many things. It's not like turning on a switch or switching it off, not on and off a switch, no. There are several factors that have to be taken into consideration, and that is the reason why the African continent and the African Union have been challenges to silence the guns. But we have to resolve our conflicts peacefully, and this is one of the principles of the African Union, just like the principle of non-interference. So this is an aspect that we all have to actually look at. When exactly do we talk about non-interference, non-indifference, and how do we use them to silence the guns? But that is the situation in which we find ourselves in. And if I am chosen by the heads of state and government as chairperson of the Commission, I will make sure that the African Union Commission would actually work towards resolving our conflicts peacefully, because we have that in the Constitutive Act of Africa, of the African Union. So we have the Peace and Security Council, we have the peace architecture of the African Union, but we also have the United Nations Security Council. And then bilaterally, we've got efforts that are underway, and we've heard about progress in some areas, in some regions where we have long-standing conflicts. And then we also have the opportunity of ensuring that there is solidarity with the United Nations, the African Union and the United Nations. This is a framework that would actually enable us to sit down with the international community and talk about crisis in Africa. Why should we only talk about the crisis in Ukraine? Why not talk about the crisis in Sudan and crisis in other African countries? So we are talking about financing peace missions, but there is also a program that actually wants to see the program of the United Nations, that is the SDGs, aligned with Agenda 2063. And then we also have the 10-year plan of our public institutions in charge of working at a national level, but we are talking about the justice systems in our respective countries. Now, concerning the two permanent seats on the United Nations Security Council, I think here in Africa we all know the importance and the urgency of having these two seats, and we have to seize this opportunity because we are actually at the end of 2024, and so we have to act very fast in 2025, and this should be the mantra of the African Union in 2025, and so of course we have to make sure that we can actually speak with one voice on the choice of who will represent Africa on the United Nations Security Council. It's not going to be easy. It will be up to the heads of states to decide who will be the continent's representative. And I will conclude to say that, like this morning, I read in the newspapers the issue, the problem between Ethiopia and Somalia, and this was being resolved by Turkey. The mediator is Turkey. Let us be realistic. responsible. Let us be serious. The African Union should be that person doing the mediation. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, candidate from Madagascar. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of our second round. And without any transition, we are going to step into the third round, and we are going to discover...
Thank you very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we move into the third round. Once again, if you're just joining us, these questions have been formulated by an independent panel, and the questions will be open and seen only at the beginning of the round, as I'm doing right now. Esteemed candidates, on the topic of reviving Pan-Africanism and countering external influence, Pan-Africanism is declining, and external powers and internal divisions challenge Africa's integration efforts. What specific steps will you take to rekindle the spirit of Pan-Africanism, counter big power politics on the continent, mobilize African countries behind a common integration agenda, ensure resource self-reliance, and position regional economic communities at the center of this process?
Cher candidat, votre question est la suivante. Le panafricanisme est en déclin et les puissances extérieures et les divisions internes remettent en cause les efforts d'intégration en Afrique. Quelles mesures spécifiques comptez-vous prendre pour raviver l'esprit du panafricanisme contre la politique des grandes puissances sur le continent, mobiliser les pays africains derrière un programme d'intégration commun, assurer l'autonomie en matière de ressources et positionner également les communautés économiques régionales au centre de ce processus? Et nous allons commencer tout de suite avec le candidat de Djibouti pour y répondre. Vous avez également 4 minutes, monsieur.
D'abord, il faut comprendre que nous
First and
vivons
foremost,
dans
we
un
have to
monde
understand
qui est
that
en
we
train
are
de se
living in a world which is multipolarized world. This is a world that is actually multipolarized, and this world would not provide space for a continent or countries that do not have the right economies, the military strength, the capacity that is required, and mostly that continent or country that is not on the world stage. This is a reality. So what can we do? What should we do? I think it is very important that the Global South should actually take action. And in the Global South, it is Africa that actually has to stand out. And how is Africa going to stand out? If we do not represent much in terms of global trade, you cannot actually sit around a table where decisions are being taken for the destiny of the world. And so integration is, I would say, an obligation, is a must. When we talk about obligation, it is important that the AFCFTA should actually be functional. It is important that intra-Africa trade be developed, and it should go beyond 18%. It is important that African countries should actually use their own resources. And so Africa has now a seat, and the G20 table. We want to congratulate South Africa for chairing the G20 next year. And so it is important that the African Union Commission should be working hand in hand with the African Union to actually make sure that Agenda 2063 is a priority item on the agenda of Agenda 2063 of the G20. Africa has to be also on the UN Security Council. Just imagine 80% of the issues discussed at the UN Security Council is African problems. When we talk about security issues, who do we talk about? Africa. We have, when we talk about food insecurity, we also hear Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia. They have actually been victims of natural disasters, but we are not the ones polluting the world. So the African Union should also be fully involved in the COP discussions. The COP discussions should also be held here in Africa. So a strong Africa has to be an Africa that is present on the global stage. We have to see that Africa has to be part and parcel of the global south, and this is what we have to do. And I'm going to make sure that our commission is going to work to ensure that Africa is part of the global south. Integration is a long-winded effort. It goes through solidarity. We are not working among ourselves. We are not speaking to one another as neighbors. Would rather trade with non-African countries because we have non-tariff barriers, because our currencies are not convertible. Our currencies are not convertible. If I want to trade in birr with Ethiopia, and Ethiopia wants to trade in francs, definitely there is loss of money. So we should have a payment and compensation system in Africa. We have to mobilize resources between 5 and 10 billion so that this compensation system is functional. Are we going to have a single currency in Africa? Why not? That is possible.
Now I give the floor to Her Excellency Randy Mandrato. It's your turn, sir. 4 minutes.
Well, I do not think that Pan-Africanism is actually dying out. No, because Pan-Africanism is in us. We are Pan-Africanists. You cannot erase the history of this continent, the history which also includes the efforts of our diaspora. So Pan-Africanism is really not dying in Africa. It is true that we all have a huge responsibility. The current generation that we have to work to make sure that the future generation should not forget what our founding fathers actually had in mind when they were establishing the OAU, so that all those who are in Africa should continue to live the same dream the same dream. We inherited this continent from our founding fathers, and we have the Africa that we want. The Africa that we see is the Africa where we live in, and the Africa that we want is the Africa that we want to prepare, and which we must prepare. And so there is a clear difference between the Africa in which we are and the African Union, which is our own home, the common house. And if the African Union Commission does not put in the right resources, the human resources and the financial resources, even the diplomats and the military, we will not get to where we want to be. And so I am of the opinion that it all depends on the will of the people to go beyond the challenges that we face today. We all know the problems of our African Union today. There are certain aspects that do not meet the expectations of the people. For example, the SACA audit that was prepared by experts proposing reforms that have to be undertaken. We also have reforms that were undertaken in 2016. So we need to undertake those reforms to ensure that the African Union can actually rise to the challenges. The regional economic communities also have a role to play. I went to COMESA for several years and actually saw the efforts undertaken by countries of COMESA and East Africa. And we see Tunisia, Egypt in COMESA as well. And this will continue. We have the Abuja Treaty actually defined gradual integration at the regional level and then continental level. And I know we will get there. And I am going to work with the members of the next commission so that together we can actually make all of this easy. And lastly, I think we should also bear in mind, we should also think about the military bases, the foreign military bases in Africa, in African countries. Some countries have already started to take their own destiny in their hands in terms of their security. We should be brave enough, we should actually have that courage to make sure that we can actually stand out there as adults that can actually take their destiny in their own hands. Foreign military bases in Africa, we do hope that in a few years' time, those military bases will be a thing of the past, because this military base is actually a source of conflict. Thank you. Thank you very much, Excellency Randra Mandriato, candidate of Madagascar. Now we're listening to Raila Amolo Odinga, candidate of Kenya.
Thank you. Well, I mentioned earlier on about the inter-African trade, which today stands just at 15%. Inter-European trade, on the other hand, stands at 70%. Inter-Asian trade stands at 60%. Africa trades more with the external world than with itself, wasting a lot of resources. Now, how did Europeans come from behind and leapfrog and overtake Africa? That is something that we need to ask ourselves. But here we need to now look forward to see how we can be able to make use of this huge domestic market that we have. We have a population of 1.4 billion people. And that is what has helped China. China did two things. One was to train the younger generation, the youth, so that they had a very highly skilled manpower. And when they liberalized their economy, the manufacturing units in the West rushed to China. If you go to China, for example, take the automobile, the Ford, the Jeep, the BMW, the Mercedes, the Toyota, the Nissan, they're all there in China. And because there was cheap, highly skilled, cheap labor, secondly, cheap raw material. The raw materials which they were actually getting originally from Africa. And that is how China has managed to develop a 600 million people middle class. Africa can be able to fill the gap which is being left down there by China by actually coming together and opening up. So we need to come together as Africa and create an African market which will be able to attract investors to come to our continent. Africa is the youngest continent in terms of population. 70% of our population is below the age of 35. That is a big bonus. It can be a bonus or it can be a curse. If the youth are not empowered, given requisite knowledge and skills, they become a drug to society, drunkards, drug addicts, and criminals. But empowered, they become a real source for wealth creation. It is a pity today that many African youths drown in the Mediterranean trying to seek greener pastures in Europe because you have not created conditions that can retain them here. Now we are saying that we want to create a situation where every African youth must be connected to the internet, and using the artificial intelligence and information technology, we can be able to give this youth opportunity to work anywhere in the world when they're staying here on the continent. This is something that we are going to address, empowerment of the African youth, and together with the African woman, so that we create a workforce that will be helped in terms of wealth creation on the continent. This will enable Africa to leapfrog and to catch up with the rest of the world. I'm saying that I want to be a vehicle to be used to help Africa to get there. We will work together with all the leadership in the continent so that Africa moves.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you very much, Your Excellency Raila Odinga, finishing us on the third round. And now we move into the fourth and final round, and I give my sister the opportunity to open the envelope and tell us what the first or the last question rather is. And ladies and gentlemen, as a form of a reminder, after this we have a quick break, and after the break each of our esteemed candidates will have 2 minutes to share their closing remarks. Fatima?
Chers candidats, votre question est la suivante. La mise en œuvre des réformes clés de l'Union africaine décidées par la conférence des chefs d'État et de gouvernement est au point mort, ce qui a un impact négatif sur sa viabilité structurelle et sur sa viabilité financière et sur la concentration de l'Union africaine sur quelques biens publics à fort impact. Si vous devenez président, quelles nouvelles approches introduirez-vous pour redynamiser la mise en œuvre de ces réformes, rationaliser le programme de l'Union africaine et renforcer son efficacité à long terme?
In the long term.
Under the topic of implementing of reforms agreed under the Assembly Decision 635, the implementation of key African Union reforms decided by the Assembly of Heads of States and Governments has stalled, with an adverse impact on its structural viability and financial sustainability, and the AU's focus on a few high-impact public goods. If you become chairperson, what new approaches will you introduce to reinvigorate the implementation of these reforms, streamline the AU's agenda, and strengthen its long-term effectiveness?
Et j'invite à présent le candidat de
Madagascar to respond first. First of all, we have to begin by bringing back order to our shared home, the African Union. I think this is the highest priority. The mandate of the chairperson of the commission as a whole lasts 4 years. So that is a very short period of time to be able to change from top to bottom what needs to be changed in terms of institutional reforms of the African Union. So one must begin by bringing back order. I did mention a short while ago the recommendations of the SACA audit. I also mentioned the reforms that have already been proposed in 2016. There would be other reforms. What needs to be done were I to become the chairperson of the union would be to review the documents, and one cannot forget history. One cannot ignore history. I don't think we could. We are at the end of a process. We are at the beginning of a new process, and the outgoing team did what they were able to do with the resources that they had at their disposal. And I would like to thank the outgoing chairperson of the commission, Mr. Faki, and his entire team. And were I to be elected chairperson of the commission, I would work, of course, with the chairperson, because it would be a lady chairperson. Now, these reforms have to be prioritized. There are reforms at the level of the financing of the African Union. There are reforms in terms of mobilization of strategic partnerships. There are, of course, issues that have to do with the effectiveness in the area of peace and security. So we have to prioritize the reforms. Yet, once again, 4 years is too short a period of time. It is therefore important to review objective by objective. Strategic objective is what I mean of the 10-year plan 2024-2032. And since it was my responsibility in COMESA, one can perhaps plan for strategic planning over perhaps 2-3 years, which strategic planning would make it possible for us to identify the urgent issues and to align the financing of these issues. The 10-year plan does not allow one to do this. And maybe were we to have a strategic plan, we could perhaps be more specific and address the matters that needed to be addressed urgently in the way of reforms. And I also think, as I said a short while ago, that that the organs of the African Union, beginning with the Conference of Heads of State and Government, but also the committee of the PRC, the Permanent Representatives Committee, with the Pan-African Parliament and the other organs, all the organs of the African Union should agree on the speed they should work at, so that at the end of the day the reforms become visible, become tangible, and that the citizens of the continent can appreciate the effectiveness of a new the effectiveness of the new African Union led by a new team. Thank you.
And now I yield the microphone to you, Excellency Raila Odinga. 4 minutes, sir.
Well, we know where we are as African Union, and that's why the heads of state came up with that committee on reforms, which was headed by former president, current Rwanda President Kagame. The chairmanship has now been passed over to Honorable William Ruto, President of Kenya. I have had long discussions with President Kagame when he was chairing that committee, because I was working as a high representative of the AU on issues of infrastructure. And I know the kind of frustrations that you feel working that way. I know that 93% of the resolutions that are passed by the heads of state at the Assembly are never implemented. Now, some of them are resolutions which were probably not necessary. Some of them are not implementable, but majority of them are just not implemented. Some have to do with the structure and management of the AU at the headquarters. I'm not trying to pass any judgment here because I know that Mr. Faki has worked very hard to try to make the organization move forward. The other one has been the issue of funding, which has been a major challenge, and look at other alternative sources of funding. When I was there as High Rep on infrastructure development, we came up with a proposal to set up an infrastructure fund for Africa, and using the African resources, because many of African countries have got a lot of money in sovereign funds, from which the AU can actually borrow without having to pay so much high interest. And this will help AU actually to spearhead the process of constructing some of these infrastructures. I mentioned the Trans-African Railway network, Lagos to Cairo, the high speed. Then you have got Beira in Mozambique to Lobito in Angola and Walvis Bay in Namibia. Then you have got the Lapset, which will come from Lamu in Kenya, running through South Sudan, Central Africa to Karibi in Cameroon, to create a land bridge that opens the interior of Africa and gives these landlocked countries in the continent access to the sea. So some of these are possible, but we need to think out of the box and ensure that most of these reforms which are being proposed are implemented. We were talking about energy, which is a very major issue, and we have got the Grand Inga in the Congo, which can actually power the entire continent with power pools, southern power pool, eastern power pool, central, western, and northern power pool. That will help us to lower the cost of energy in the continent. That would be a revolutionary change on the continent. Then you've got the connectivity, fiber optic connectivity, open skies, opening up the skies for movement of people, and then visas. To do visas are a big issue. Many African businessmen cannot travel across the continent because they don't have visas.
Excellency, I'm really sorry to interrupt you. Les 4 minutes se sont écoulées. Nous allons maintenant suivre.
We are going now to listen to the response from the last candidate for this round, the candidate from Djibouti.
Let me start by paying tribute to our heads of states who have endorsed those reforms in 2017. And then the champion for those reforms was His Excellency President Kagame, and he passed the responsibility to President Ruto. Now, there are a number of reforms that have already been implemented. We have to recognize that. The size of the Commission, we had 10 commissioners, chairperson, deputy chairperson, and 8 commissioners, and it has been reduced. We have what we call a golden rule in terms of managing the staff and the personnel. I'm still waiting for the SACA program to be implemented. I hope that this hot potato will not wait for us, one of us, when we'll be elected. But I hope that the SACA process will be implemented. It is about the personnel, the staff. We have moved from a lot of short contract employees to a permanent contract. That's very important. If you want to create loyalty, you want to create the ownership within your staff and personnel, you have to make them happy. They need to have a permanent contract, and it is in the SACA program. Now, the biggest bottleneck of the reforms is the financing. Our heads of state said we will pay 0.2% of eligible import to the Commission. Only 17 countries, 17, are applying and abiding by that rule. It has to change. I'm not going to impose that on our leaders. It's not my intention, but I will advocate for it. It's very important to have, that particular issue of mobilizing and fostering financing be resolved immediately. Then, our experts, there is a unit in the African Union Commission called the Reform Unit, led by Mr. Makoko, a very able African expert. But there are so many reforms that have not been implemented. One of them is PAP, the Pan-African Parliament. It's still a consultative organ. When is the Pan-African Parliament will become a legislative organ? They have passed in 2014 a protocol. Only 15 countries ratified that protocol. And this is one of the major reforms that we have to implement. Then we have on the judicial sector, the Court of Justice, the Commission of Human Rights. Sometimes they are fighting on issues. The Court of Justice do not open its doors to nationals, to African citizens, to NGOs. They are complaining. I am hearing complaints about the African citizens with regard to the Court of Justice. And then they are fighting who is doing what, the Commission of Human Rights. These reforms have to be implemented. And the Bureau of Liaison, a liaison bureau. We have so many on the continent. That's double use of those bureaus. Time is running, time is flying. So we have to rationalize. How can you imagine that you have 3 bureaus in the same region? And we're saying we should have the golden rules for management. And whenever we want to touch one of the bureaus, it's a political matter. It's useless, but it is a political matter. The country that is hosting the bureau is saying you won't touch it. It has to change. It needs leadership. It needs understanding, negotiation, but it has to change. If you want to change things, we have to be frank and outspoken. We have to be, really tough when it comes to be tough, and lean when it comes to we have to do it. We have to do it.
Yes, sir, your time is up. And now, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of round 4. If you are just joining us, we've had 4 rounds, and each of them has touched on a thematic area. And now we will go for a quick break. When we come back, the candidates each have 2 minutes to share their closing remarks.
Mesdames et messieurs, nous remercions bien sûr nos chers candidats d'avoir répondu à la dernière question du 4e round de ce débat de Mjadala Africa, débat sur le leadership de l'Union africaine. Merci beaucoup de rester avec nous. On va se retrouver dans quelques instants. Nous allons marquer une autre courte pause et après la pause, chaque candidat aura 2 minutes pour le mot de clôture. À tout de suite.
at the heart of Addis Ababa, a city of transformation and beauty. This week, the city will host a pivotal event that could shape the future of the continent. Come with me as we explore what's about to unfold. Union Commission. Let me introduce them to you. The first candidate, His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, Djibouti. The second candidate, His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga, Kenya. The third candidate, His Excellency Richard Randriamandrato, Madagascar. And now, let's take a deeper look into their profiles.
by the Ethiopian Broadcasting Corporation.
proceed into the last part of our debate today, Mjadala Africa Leadership Debate 2024. And we want to say a special thank you to our audience around the world. The questions you sent truly informed the kinds of questions that we then asked our panel here. And we are very happy that you were very involved. It goes to show that indeed the Africa we want is in your hands and that you are actively involved in doing this together. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are back to our last session. My name is Anita Erskine, and I'm joined here by my colleague Fatima Sharif, who is our French speaker.
Merci beaucoup Anita, mesdames et messieurs. Merci encore une fois de vous joindre à nous pour la dernière ligne droite du débat de Mjadala Africa, débat sur le leadership de l'Union africaine. Vous avez pu suivre au courant du débat les questions qui ont été posées, les réponses données par les différents candidats et on arrive pratiquement au terme du débat. Alors Anita, nous allons donner bien sûr le mot de clôture aux candidats tout de suite.
Absolument, merci beaucoup Fatima. And now to our three candidates, you each have 2 minutes to share your closing remarks, or better still, your last words. We will start this round with His Excellency Raila Odinga.
Thank you. I am delighted to have had the opportunity to address our people of Africa. And as I've said, I am ready to work for Africa. There are reforms that will be necessary so that AU can work more effectively. One of these reforms will be financial reforms, so that we are able to bring in the African private sector into the funding. I mentioned also the issue of sovereign funds that we can use. We can create a fund that will enable AU to do all its work. Then there's issue of 0.2% of the duty, which only 17 countries are remitting. I will work to ensure that all the countries can pay their dues to the Union. This is what happens in the European Union, and that's why European Union is able to even fund African Union. It's a shame. We can be able to fund this organization out of our own resources on the continent. And this is what I'm going to try to do. And I said that I am ready on day one when I'm appointed. I will not need any kind of induction. I'm ready to work for the continent. And I will offer my best. The days of Africa have come. The African lion will begin to roar and tell its Asian tiger counterpart and the European bear and the American jaguar that this is going to be Africa's millennium. 2000.
Dear candidate, I'm really sorry to interrupt you once again, but these are the rules of the debate. Nous allons maintenant, mesdames et
we are going now, ladies and gentlemen, give 2 minutes to the candidate of Djibouti closing remarks.
يعني أن نطق ببعض الكلمات باللغة العربية. اسمحوا لي أن أختتم هذه المناظرة برجاء.
Thank you so much, and let me speak in Arabic. I would like to say that if I will be elected as the chair of the African Union Commission, I will be up to your aspirations and I will defend the interests of our continent, and I will work diligently to defend our continent, and with the full modesty, I think that I deserve it.
So I wish for our African people, our countries, a very happy 2025.
Africans tonight, I wish to all African nations and citizens all the best. Thank you for your support.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And now 2 minutes for you, His Excellency Richard J. Randemandrato.
En 2025,
in 2025, there will be a new team that will be leading for 4 years. Will be leading the African Union Commission for 4 years, and there shall be 8 high-level public servants like most of us, and we shall be the ones to continue with the reforms. We shall be a united team, a team that will have the team spirit to continue in the implementation of the 10-year plan of Agenda 2063. I do regret that this evening we're not able to handle subjects that are so urgent because we did not have enough time. Issues such as public health, the debt, issues of financing and financial institutions of the African Union, questions that have to do with the participation of the civil society and the diaspora, the questions that are linked to information and digital technology. I'm sorry we did not have time to deal with those issues, but on we shall have other opportunities, and I shall be able to make my modest contribution. Like in public sport, there have to be players, and there have to be those who choose, who select the players, those who select the heads of state. It is up to them to select the team that will lead the African Union Commission. For their need, we need a leader. Men and women need a leader, and I hope that in 2025, the wisdom of heads of state and government will balance the team that will win, so that the Africa that we want can continue to win the battle for sustainable development. Thank you. Thank you very much for these closing remarks that have been made by the different
candidates. Thank you very much to our esteemed candidates. Ladies and gentlemen, please, another round of applause for our esteemed candidates tonight. We have heard from His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, Foreign Affairs Minister Djibouti. We've also heard from His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga, former Prime Minister of Kenya. We've also heard from His Excellency Richard J. Randyamandrato, who is the former Foreign Affairs Minister of Madagascar. Each one of our candidates has done an exceptional job talking about the thematic areas that were set before them. We've talked about advancing economic integration. We've talked about promoting peace and security as well as democracy, Africa's place in global affairs, and reforming the African Union amongst many. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolute honor bringing you Mjadala Africa Leadership Debate 2024.
Merci infiniment, Anita. Mesdames et messieurs, on arrive au terme du débat de Mjadala Africa en direct depuis le siège de la Commission de l'Union africaine à Addis Abeba. On a été ravis de vous accompagner pour la modération du débat. On souhaite bien sûr bonne chance aux différents candidats. L'élection du nouveau président se fera au niveau de la Commission de l'Union africaine. Elle aura lieu au mois de février prochain. Merci à toutes et à tous de nous avoir suivis et bonne fin de soirée.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much and have a wonderful night.
የናሬሽን ፓወር ጅማሮ ደግሞ የኢቢሲን ብንው የናሬሽን ፓወር ጅማሮ ደግሞ የኢቢሲን ብንወስድ ከ4-5 ዓመት በኋላ ኢቢሲ የአፍሪካን ወሬ የሚያወራ ነው የሚሆነው። ኢቲቪም በአፍሪካ ብዙዎቹ ነፃ ሳይወጡ የነበረ ተቋም ነው። ይህ ተቋም በሚመጥነው ልክ ቢደራጅ በቴክኖሎጂ በተፈጥሮ በመልክዓ ምድር በሰው ኃይል ቢደራጅ የኢትዮጵያን ናሬሽን በአፍሪካ ደረጃ ለመገንባት ይችላል። ከፍ ብለው ወጥተን በአፍሪካ ደረጃ አንደኛ የሰው ልጅ መገኛ መሆናችንን ከ6000 በላይ ኢንዲጂነስ ያለበት ሀገር መሆኑን ተራራም ከፍታ ቦታም ዝቅታ ቦታም ያለበት ቦታ መሆኑን ቢያንስ ለሁሉም ጎረቤት ሀገር ለሁሉም ንጹህ ውሃ የምትሰጥ ሰጪ ሀገር መሆኗን ለኤርትራ ተከዜን ለሱዳን ተከዜን ለሱዳን አባይን ለግብጽ አባይን ለኬንያ ኦሞን ዋቢ ሸበሌን ለሶማሌ ለጅቡቲ እንኳን ቢቸግረን በፓይፕላይን ውሃ እንሰጣለን። ለሁሉ የምንሰጥ ደጋግ ህዝቦች መሆናችንን ኢቲቪ መግለጥ አለበት። እኛ ተቀባይ አይደለም ሰጪ ነን። በብዙ ነገር ብዙ የሚነገር ታሪክ አለን፣ ብዙ የሚታይ ቦታ አለን። ይሄንን በትክክል መስራት ስለሚጠበቅበትና ተቋሙ ያንን መምሰል ስላለበት አሁን እንደምታዩ በጣም ሰፊ ስቱዲዮ 10 ስቱዲዮ ያለው ሰፊ ኮምፓውንድ ያለው የሚያምር ቦታ ብትጎበኘው ብታዩ ማይጠገብ ቦታ የእናንተን ብቃት ጎልጉሎ ማውጣት የሚያስችል ቴክኖሎጂ ነው ያለው። እኔ በግል የምጠብቀው ነገር ኢቲቪ ኢትዮጵያን በአፍሪካ ደረጃ ቦታዋን እንድትይዝ የሚያደርግ ሚዲያ መሆን አለበት። ፈጣን መሆን አለበት። አጫጭር መሆን አለባቸው። የሚተላለፉት ዘገባዎች ሳቢ መሆን አለባቸው። ይሄን ለማድረግ የእናንተን ልምድና የወጣቱን ደግሞ ቴክኖሎጂካል አቅም በመጠቀም በአፍሪካ ኮምፒተንት ተቋም ይሆናል ብዬ አስባለሁ። እኔ ምን መሰለህ የኔ ትዝብትና ምልከታ ህንድ ኢኮኖሚዋ እያደገ ሲመጣ ተቋሞቿ መታየት ጀመሩ። መከላከያዎቿ ከመግዛት ወደ መሸጥ፣ ሚዲያዎቿ ከማድመጥ ወደ መናገር እየተቀየሩ ሄዱ። ቻይናን ብትወስድ የዛሬ 30 ዓመት ያልነበረ ነው አሁን የምታየው ሚዲያዎቻቸው ተቋሞቻቸው። በሌሎች ሀገራት ይታያል ይሄ ነገር፣ በእኛም እየመጣ ነው።
ተመልሰናል። የተወደዳችሁ እንግዲህ የገዘፈውና አህጉራዊ ኃላፊነት የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን ለአፍሪካ ኅብረት ኮሚሽን ሊቀመንበርነት የሚወዳደሩ እጩዎችን በቀጥታ ስርጭት ለመላው ኢትዮጵያ ለመላው አፍሪካና ለመላው ዓለም ሲያስተላልፍ የቆየበትን ልዩ ሁነት ስትከታተሉ ቆይታችኋል። በእርግጥም ኢቢሲ የአፍሪካ ድምጽ እንደሚሆን ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር አብይ አህመድ ከዚህ በፊት ያነሱት ሀሳብ እውን እየሆነ ስለመምጣቱ ዛሬ በቀጥታ ስርጭት ስትከታተሉት የቆያችሁት ዋና ዋና የምርጫ ቀስቀሳ ሂደቶች ማሳያዎች ናቸው። እንግዲህ ሁሉም የአፍሪካ ሀገራት የተቀባበሉት ከኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን ነው። ሁሉንም ሀሳቦች ላብነት ፊት ለፊት ላይ ያሉ መገናኛ ዘዴዎች የኬንያ፣ የናይጄሪያ፣ የናሚቢያ፣ የቦትስዋና፣ ዩጋንዳ፣ ሩዋንዳ፣ ደቡብ አፍሪካ፣ ኤስኤቢሲ፣ ዲኤስቲቪ እና ሱፐር ስፖርትን ጨምሮ ግዙፍ የሚዲያ አውትሌቶች የሚዲያ ማስተላለፊያ ማሰራጫ ጣቢያዎች የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን ዋቢ ያደረጉ በቀጥታ ስርጭት እንግዲህ ይሄ ዛሬ ስትከታተሉት የቆያችሁትን እጅግ አስደናቂ ታሪካዊ የሆነውን ግዙፉን ሁነት ሲያሰራጩ ቆይተዋል። በፖለቲካ፣ በኢኮኖሚ፣ በምጣኔ ሀብት አህጉሩን ሊያስተሳስሩ በሚችሉ ጉዳዮች ዙሪያ ሰፊ ሀሳብና ጥያቄም ተነስቶላቸው ካዘጋጅ ኮሚቴው እንግዲህ ለምርጫ ቀስቀሳ የወጡ 3 እጩ ተፎካካሪዎች ግብ ያደረጉበት ነው። የትኛው ሊያሸንፍ ይችላል? የካቲትን ወር መጠበቅ ግድ ይለናል። ነገር ግን እንደታዘባችሁት እኛም ትዝብታችን እንደማጠቃለያ አንስተን እንወጣለን። ዶክተር ሰይፈ አንተ ጋር ነኝ። እንዴት አየኸው? እስኪ አጠር አድርገን ነው የምንቆይበት ማጠቃለያ እንደመሆኑ መጠን የትኛው ሊያሸንፍ ይችላል የሚለውንም በዚሁ ትንበያ ሰጥተን መውጣት እንችላለን።
ቴንክ ዩ አመሰግናለሁ ሰለሞን። በጣም ደስ የሚል እንትን ዲቤት ነበረ። ጥያቄዎቹ በጣም ይነጠሩ ነበሩ። ተወዳዳሪዎቹም በሚገባ መልኩ ራሳቸውን ገልጸዋል። እንግዲህ የምናወዳድርበት የተለያየ ሚዛን ሊኖር ይችላል። የእውቀታቸው ጥልቀት፣ ስለ አፍሪካ ያላቸው ግንዛቤ፣ እንዴት መስተዳድሩን የአፍሪካን ዩኒየንን ኮሚሽን እንዴት እንደሚመሩ በዋና ጉዳዮች ላይ ያላቸው አስተያየት ኢንክሉዲንግ የዚህ የሳይለንሲንግ ዘጋያን የአፍሪካ በሴኩሪቲ ካውንስል እንዴት ሪፕሬዘንት መደረግ እንዳለባት ኤፍሲቲኤን ኦር ሲኤፍቲኤን እንዴት ማሳደግ እንዳለባቸው የወጣቶችን የስራ አጥነትን መቀነስ ብዙ ነገሮች ነው ያነሱት። ያልዳሰሱት ነገር የለም። እንግዲህ ተወዳዳሪ አንዳንዱ ጠንከራ አድርጎ ይሄድበት አለ አንዳንዱ ደግሞ ላላ አድርጎ ይሄድበት አለ ይሄንን በሙሉ ያየንበት ነውና ኢትስ ሪሊ በጣም ለኔ ፋሲኔት
አስደናቂ ውድድር ነው። ግምትህን እንስማ ዶክተር ማንን ትላለህ?
እንግዲህ የተለያየ ነገር ኢሹዎች ላይ በነገሮች ምንድነው ጉዳዮችን በመተንተን አኳያ የጅቡቲው ተወካይ በጣም ራሳቸውን አርቲኩሌት ያደረጉበት መንገድ በጣም ደስ የሚል ነው ፋሲኔት የሚያደርግ ነው። ሁለተኛ ደረጃ የዚህ የማዳጋስካሩ የቀድሞ የውጭ ጉዳይ ሚኒስትር ያነሷቸው ሀሳቦች የሚጣሉ አይደሉም። እንዲሁ የዚህ የኬንያው ታላቁ ፖለቲከኛ የማይጣሉ አንዳንድ ሀሳቦች አንስተዋል ኢንክሉዲንግ ሴኩሪቲ ካውንስል ላይ እንዴት አፍሪካ ሪፕሬዘንት መሆን እንዳለባት ግን ያልመለሱት ጥያቄ እንዴት የሚለውን ነው። ግን ምናልባት ከጥያቄው ሊሆን ይችላል። እኔ በፐርሰናል የግሌን አስተያየት ብል የጅቡቲው ጠንከር ያለ ሀሳብ ያነሱ ይመስለኛል እና በጣም አነጋገራቸውም የሰጡት አስተያየት ብዙ ፋይዳ ያለውና ሚዛን ላይ የሚወድቅ ይመስለኛል። እንግዲህ በአስተያየት ደረጃ
ትክክል ነው። ያ አንስፔት ማድረግ ስላለብን ነው ነገር ይሁን። ከወንዶሰን አፈወርቅ ጋር መጠነኛ ቆይታ እናደርጋለን። በቀጥታ መስመራችን ላይ እዛው አፍሪካ ህብረት ክርክሩ ተጧጥፎ ከቀጠለበት ቅጥር ግቢ ውስጥ ነው የሚገኘው። ሰላም ላንተ ወንዴ፣ እንደምን አመሸህ? ምን ታዘብክ? ምን ልትነግረን ትችላለህ? ጠቅለል ያለውን ነገር አጠር አድርገህ እስኪ ንገረን።
እንደምን አምሽተሃል ሰለሞን። እንግዲህ ቀደም ሲል እናንተም ስታነሱት ነበር በጣም የተጋጋለ የሚባል ክርክር ነበር። ያው በሶስቱም እጩዎች የተለያዩ ሀሳቦቻቸውን አቅርበው ነበር። ያው ሰፋ ያሉ ጉዳዮች ናቸው የተነሱት። በተለይ አፍሪካን የሚመለከቱ ጉዳዮች ከዚህ ከአፍሪካ ሰላምና ደህንነት ጋር የተያዙ ሰፊ ጉዳዮች ተነስተው ነበር። አፍሪካን እንዴት ነው ሰላማዊ ደህንነቷ የተጠበቀ ማድረግ የሚቻለው? በዚህ ውስጥ የአፍሪካ ህብረት እንዲሁም ምን አይነት ሚናዎችን መጫወት ይችላል? እናንተስ ብትመረጡ ምን ታደርጋላችሁ? በሚሉ ሀሳቦች ላይ በስፋት ሀሳቦችን እንዲሁ ሲሰነዝሩ ነበር። ከዛ በተጨማሪነት በተለይ ደግሞ አፍሪካ አሁን ተጽዕኖ ፈጣሪ ወደ መሆን እየመጣች ነው። በዓለም አቀፍ ደረጃ ተፈላጊነቷም እየጨመረ ነው። በቀጣይም ከሀያሎች ተርታ እንድትሰለፍ ይጠበቃልና ከዚህ ጋር ተያይዞ እንዲሁ ሰፊ ስራዎች ይጠብቋቸዋል። ቦታዋን ደግሞ አፍሪካ ማግኘት አለባት። አሁን ቀደም ሲልም ሲነሳ እንደነበረው በጸጥታው ምክር ቤት ክርክሩ ላይም ሲነሳ እንደነበረው በጸጥታው ምክር ቤት በተለይ ከአፍሪካውያን ከቀኝ ግዛት ባልተላቀቁበት ወቅት እነዚህ ዓለም አቀፍ የሚባሉ ተቋማት ወደ ስራ የገቡበት ከመሆኑ ጋር ተያይዞ አፍሪካ የተገፋችባቸው ሁኔታዎች እንዳሉ፣ ነገር ግን አፍሪካውን ወደፊት መታ በተለይ ደግሞ በብዛት በአፍሪካ ጉዳይ በሚመከርባቸው መድረኮች ላይ የራሷን የሆነ ድምጽ ማሰማት እንዳለባት ቋሚ መቀመጫ በጸጥታው ምክር ቤት እንዲሁ ሊኖራት እንደሚገባ ጭምር የተነሳበት ነው። ከዛ ውጪ ከአፍሪካ ህብረት ጋርም ተያይዞ እንዲሁ ሰፋፊ ሀሳቦች ተነስተዋል። በተለይ የአፍሪካ ህብረት ሪፎርም እያደረገ እንደሆነ ይታወቃል። ተጽዕኖ ፈጣሪ ተቋም መሆን አለበት። ከዚህ ቀደም የሚታቸው ነገር አለ። በተለይ አፍሪካ ህብረት በደንብ ተጽዕኖ ፈጣሪ መሆን አለበት የሚሉ ሀሳቦች ይነሳሉና ከዛ ጋር ተያይዞ ህብረቱን ተጽዕኖ ፈጣሪ ከማድረግ አንጻር ያው የሪፎርም ስራዎችም እንዲሁ በተቋሙ ውስጥ እየተሰሩ ነው የሚገኘውና ከዚህ ጋር ተያይዞ እናንተስ ምን አይነት ስራዎችን ትሰራላችሁ የሚሉ ሀሳቦች ሲነሱ ነበር። በተለይ ደግሞ ይሄ ከፋይናንስ ጋር ተያይዞ ያሉ ችግሮችን ለመፍታት በህብረት ውስጥ እንደሚሰራ ሲገለጽም ነበር በእጩዎቹ። በተለይ ደግሞ አፍሪካዊ ካልሆኑ ከሌሎች ሀገራት በብዛት ለህብረቱ የሚሆኑ ገንዘብ የሚገኝባቸው ሁኔታዎች አሉና እንደዚህ አይነት ነገሮች እንደውም ትንሽ የሚያሳፍር ነው በሚል ደረጃ ሲገለጽም ጭምር የነበረበት ነውና እንደዚህ አይነት ጉዳዮች በስፋት የተነሱበት በጣም ቆንጆ መድረክ ነበር። እንግዲህ ተመልካቾቻችንም ሲከታተሉት እንደነበረው ማለት ነው።
በጣም አድርገን ነው የምናመሰግነው ወንደሰን። መልካም ምሽት ይሁንልህ። ሂክማ ወደ አንቺ እመጣለሁ። ሮዝ አጠር አድርገሽ ኢቢሲና አፍሪካ ህብረት እንደዚሁም ደግሞ ኢትዮጵያ ለአፍሪካ ህብረት ያበረከተችው አስተዋጽኦ በዛሬው የቀጥታ ስርጭት በአንድም በሌላም መንገድ የተገለጸበት ነውና ምን ማለት እንችላለን?
እሱን ወደ ኋላ እንመለስበትና እንደማጠቃለያ ነገር ግን ሂክማ በእንግሊዘኛ ደግሞ ቪዲዮዎችን አድሬስ ታደርግበት ነው።
All right, so we are back from the live transmission of the African Leadership Debate or the African Union Chairperson Candidates Debate 2024, which was already being held, and that is where the future of our continent is being shaped. And we have already seen a spirited or a fiercely kind of debate within these candidates, reflecting on a different kind of issues that is pressing our continent, Africa, with regard to pressing issues like economic integration, peace and security, climate resilience, and their plans also to implement the Agenda 2063. So we will stay with you still in order to wrap up the discussion that we were having previously regarding this debate, and also we're going to talk about what we saw in this debate, and I'm going to forward questions to Dr. Saifa, of course. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to continue.
Take your time.
Okay, so from what we have seen together, we have been watching it, of course. Do you believe the candidates effectively addressed the core challenges Africa faces, such as like security, economic disparity, and governance? What do you think?
Yeah, the candidate, they tried just to address, each issue based on the question. Some of the candidates, they were dodging, the question, and they were talking something else when they has been asking by moderators, yeah. But overall, I mean, the debate was fantastic. I mean, we heard that their strategy for the next 4 years. And the big question is how they are going to address this, the big challenge which they are going to face when they took the office. That is, it will be $1 million question. Yeah. But otherwise, the other challenge is not about, how you articulate the matter, also how you get the backing from African head of state. So the whole issue will be, it will remain in February secret ballot box.
Yeah. That is right. We should expect that there will be like a good result after this debate, actually. And the candidate who has delivered a very good kind of solution to the pressing challenges we are facing will be selected accordingly. So let me just give it up to you.
Thank you very much. እንመለሳለን። ቀደም ሲል ያነሳውልሽ ጥያቄ ነበር ሮዝ። የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን ፓን አፍሪካኒዝም የአፍሪካ አንድነት ድርጅት ከአፍሪካ ህብረት መስረታ ድረስ የአፍሪካውያን የጥቁር ህዝቦች ሁሉ ድምጽ ሆኖ ከአንጋፋው የኢትዮጵያ ብሔራዊ ሬዲዮ ጀምሮ ዛሬ እስከደረስንበት በቀጥታ ስርጭት በኢቢሲ ዶት ስትሪም በኢቢሲ ወርልድ በፌስቡክ በትዊተር ወይንም ኤክስ ገጽ በቲክቶክ እና በሁሉም አማራጮቹ በቀጥታ ስርጭት ሲያስተላልፍ ቆይቷልና የዛ ተከታይ ዋነኛው ሐሳብ ሲቀነቀን ኢቢሲ ምን አይነት ሮል ነበረው የሚለው ነበር ሳነሳልሽ ነው።
ቀደም ሲልም በስፋት አንስተናል። እርግጥ ነው ሁለት ነገሮችን ማይጠቀሚታ ይኖራል በያስባለው። አንደኛው የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን ለዘመናት ሲወጣ የነበረው ሚና እንደ አፍሪካ ህብረት እና እንደ ታሪክ ነጋሪነቱ እንደ አንጋፋነቱ በደንብ የተወጣበትን ነገር ማንሳት እንችላለን። ሁለቱም ግን ልናነሳ የምንችለው ኢትዮጵያ ለአፍሪካ ህብረት ያላትን ሚና ማሳያ ነው። የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን የሚያደርገው የእያንዳንዱ አስተዋጽኦ ኢትዮጵያ ለአፍሪካ ሀገራት ያላትን ሚና በአንድም በሌላው የአንድ ሳንቲም ሁለት ገጽታ ሆኖ የሚያመላክተው ነው። ምክንያቱም ከፓን አፍሪካኒዝም እንቅስቃሴ ስንጀምር ኢትዮጵያ የፓን አፍሪካኒዝም እንቅስቃሴ ለዘመናት ስታራምድ ቆይታ ስደግፍ መቆየቷ በሚዲያዋ ሲገለጽ ኖሯል። የኢትዮጵያ ቴሌቪዥንም የኢትዮጵያ ብሔራዊ ሬዲዮም በተመሳሳይ በዚህ መልኩ ሲያግዝ መቆየቱን እናውቃለን። ከዛ በኋላም ባሉ የአፍሪካ አንድነት ድርጅትን በተመሳሳይ ኢትዮጵያ ሁሉም አፍሪካ ሀገራት መሰባሰብ መነጋገር አለብን የጋራ ነገር በሂደት ማሳካት አለብን ብለው ሁለት የተራራቁ ቡድኖችን አንድ ላይ ሲያመጣ የኢትዮጵያ መንግስት የኢትዮጵያ ቴሌቪዥን የኢትዮጵያ ብሔራዊ ሬዲዮም ጭምር በዚህ ውስጥ አልፈዋል። ስለዚህ የኢትዮጵያ መንግስት በየዘመናቱ ሁሉ ባልተለያየ መልኩ ለአፍሪካ ሲያደርግ የነበረው አስተዋጽኦ አንድም ጊዜ ጎሎ አያውቅም። ምክንያቱም ኢትዮጵያ በዘመኗ ሁሉ የተለያዩ መንግስታቶችን ቢቀያየሩ በተለያዩ ጊዜያቶችን ቢሆኑ ለአፍሪካ ህብረት የምታደርገው ሚና ትልቅ ስለነበረ ነው። አሁን ላይ ያሉትን ጉዳዮች ደግሞ በስፋት ብናነሳ አፍሪካ ህብረት እንግዲህ እንደሚታወቀው ኢትዮጵያ በአፍሪካ ህብረት ትልቅ እምነት ያላት ሀገር ናት። አፍሪካዊ ችግሮች ሁሉ በአፍሪካዊ መፍትሄ ሊሰጣቸው ይገባል ብላ ለዛ ስትሟገት ለዛ ስትሰራ ራሷን ማሳይታ ያረጋገጠች ሀገር ናት። ለዚህ ደግሞ አብሮ የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን በችግሮች ሁሉ ከአፍሪካ ህብረት ጋር ቆሟል። በመፍትሄዎች ሁሉ አፍሪካውያን የተሻለ ለራሳቸው ችግር መፍትሄ ሊያስቀምጡ ይገባል ብሎ ቆሟል። ኢትዮጵያ እንደምናውቀው ለቅርብ የጎረቤት ሀገሮቿ ከሁሉም የውጭ ጉዳይ ፖሊሲዎች ቅድሚያ ሰጥታ ትሰራለች። ከሌሎች ሀገራት በተለየ መልኩ ዙሪያዋ ላሉ የውጭ ጎረቤት ሀገራቶቻችን ቅድሚያ የሆነ የውጭ ጉዳይ ፖሊሲ አለን። ይህን ጉዳይ የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን በትኩረት ከሀገራት ጋር ጭምር በተለያዩ ጊዜያቶቻቸው የአፍሪካ ጎረቤት ሀገሮች በተለያዩ ጊዜያቶች ሁሉ ባስፈለጉን ሰዓት ይሄድን ስንዘግብ እንደነበረ ይታወቃል። አሁንም የአፍሪካ ድምጽነታችንን አጠናክረን እንቀጥላለን። ስለዚህ እነዚህ ጉዳዮችን ስታነሳ ሰለሞን የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን እንቅስቃሴዎች ሁሉ ከሀገሩ ለአፍሪካ ኢትዮጵያ ካላት ሚና የሚቀዳ እንደሆነ እናነሳለን። እንግዲህ ቀጠናዊ ትስስሮችን በመተግበር ረገድም የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን ሲመጣ እንደ ሀገር የምናነሳው ጉዳይ እንዳለ የምናነሳው ነው። ምክንያቱም ቀጠናዊ ትስስሮቻችንን በማሳደግ ረገድ የቀደም ሲል የጠቀስኳቸው የኤሌክትሪክ ግንኙነቶች የኤሌክትሪክ ዲፕሎማሲ መገንባት ላይ የቀጠናው ከጅቡቲ ጋር ያለን መንገድ ላይ የመሰረተ ልማት ትስስር ላይ ሁሉን አብረን ልናነሳ እንችላለን። ከዛ ውጪ ደግሞ በዓለም አቀፍ ደረጃ የኢፌዴሪ ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ዶክተር አብይ አህመድ የሚያነሷቸው ሀሳቦች በሙሉ አፍሪካዊ ሀሳቦች ናቸው። ዩኤን ልታገኝ ይገባል፣ ኢትዮጵያ ቋሚ መቀመጫ ሊኖራት ነው፣ አፍሪካ ቋሚ መቀመጫ ሊኖራት ይገባል ብለው የአፍሪካን አጀንዳ ነው በዓለም አቀፍ ደረጃ የሚያራምዱት። ያኔም የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን አብሮ አለ። በእነዚህ ጉዳዮች ሁሉ አፍሪካ የሆነ አጀንዳን እያቀነቀነ ቆይቷልና ምን ላነሳለህ ነው እንደ ሀገር ለአፍሪካ ህብረት በዘመናት ሁሉ እያደረግነው ያለነው አስተዋጽኦ በኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን በሁሉም ሚዲያሞች ውስጥ የሚገለጽ ትብብር ነው። ስለዚህ የአፍሪካ ድምጽ ሆኖ መቀጠሉን ማስተማመኛ ነው ዛሬው።
ትክክል ነው። ይሄ እንግዲህ በቀጥታ ስርጭት የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን ለመላው ኢትዮጵያ ለመላው አፍሪካና ለመላው ዓለም ሲያስተላልፍ በሚዲያ ዲፕሎማሲው ረገድ ኢትዮጵያ በፖለቲካ ዲፕሎማሲ በኢኮኖሚ ዲፕሎማሲ የአፍሪካ አህጉርን እርስ በርስ በማስተሳሰር ከተወጣችው ዘመን ተሻጋሪና ዘለግ ያሉ እውነታዎች ጎን ለጎን ዛሬ በቀጥታ ስርጭት በእርግጥም ኢቢሲ የአፍሪካ ድምጽ ሆኖ እየሰራ ስለመሆኑ አንደኛው ማሳያ አድርገን ልንወስድ እንችላለን። ሂክማ አንቺ ጋር እንግዳሽ ጋር እንድትቆዩና እንደምስም በቀጥታ ስርጭት ስላለ የደምስን የማጠቃላይ ሐሳብም መከታተል ስላለብን this is your time.
Okay, so let me just focus on the areas of the three candidates who are vying for the African Union Commission chairpersonship. So Raila Odinga, candidate from Kenya with a background of in leadership as Kenya's former prime minister, emphasized a vision, centered on infrastructure, integration, and also economic empowerment to unify and develop our continent. So his campaign is supported by several East and Southern African countries. And moving on, we find Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, candidate from Djibouti. So Djibouti's long-serving, foreign minister since 2005. Yusuf's focus is on fostering regional diplomacy and enhancing Africa's role on the global stage. And he also, brings decades of experience in international cooperation as well as diplomatic leadership. And the last candidate, which is the third, is Richard Randimadrato. Sure, this name is a little bit difficult for me. He is a candidate from Madagascar. He is a former finance minister. So he prioritizes financial reform, sustainable development, and also peace building. And his campaign aims to address economic disparities and also strengthen African Union governance structures. Now, my question for Dr. Seifa, if I just outline some of the focus areas of these candidates, let me ask you, where the candidates' priorities, aligned with the immediate and long-term needs of the continent? So if your answer is no, maybe you can just tell us what key issues were overlooked.
Look, they have touched, several issues, what they had been asking by the moderators. But as I said before, the big question is how to resolve these issues. One of the issues which is raised by Royal Odinga, he emphasized mostly the representation of Africa in the UN Peace Council. Not only just to representation, even just to have, a veto power. The big question, as I have said, how we can represent Africa in UN Security Council. Who will be representative? Can it be, the biggest population in the continent, or the biggest economy in the continent, or the African Union will represent the African people? That is the question which we need to be to get, from these candidates. The candidate from Djibouti, Muhammad Ali, he raised several issues, but he emphasized to develop, the CFTA from around to 80% from what we have right now. And that is the most important issue which we have to emphasize. And the third one is the Madagascarian candidate. He raised several issues, including the most important, which I take it very seriously, the climate resilience and agriculture production throughout the continent. As you know, Madagascar is an agriculture-centered country, and they have been contributing for the medical industry for several years. So that is what he has been emphasizing. Also, he was mentioning, how AFCTA and COMESA should collaborate, in enhancing, trade among African countries. These are the major top points which is raised by all three candidates. There are several, but I just picked this.
All right, so if we said all this, I'm gonna lead to Demis Makres his insights regarding this debate and the conclusion. So Demis, how did you view today's the African Union chairpersonship debate? How did you find it?
Thank you very much, Hikma. We have actually witnessed an impressive debate among all the three candidates, and they actually presented their plan and vision for the African continent if they, elected to be the chairman of the African Union Commission. In the very first part of the debate, they of course highlighted very general kind of statements. Just to highlight a few points from the opening part, Mr. Odinga, one of the candidates from Kenya, highlighted about his position as he presented himself as a Pan-Africanist, and he also say he vows to work on ensuring the forefathers of African dream. So that was the center of his attention in the very beginning of the debate. And also the Madagascar candidate also presented about some economic issues, and he mentioned that presently Africa has an annual growth rate around 3.14%, and he vows to sustain and further boost this economic growth as well. From Djibouti, Muhammad Ali Yusuf also mentioned peace and security issues, and he said Africa needs to enhance its peace and security standby force. He talks about the Africa Peace Fund and things related to that, so he vows to work more around that area as well. So they were presented with a round of questions that pertains to different sectors from economy to politics and other issues as well. In the first part, they were asked how they can turn the continent's resource into wealth, and they were asked how they can also achieve the Africa free trade area, Africa continental free trade area, and they respond in different ways. And the first response from the Kenya representative Odinga was Africa. He said Africa has rich resources, but the least developed continent in the world. And he attributes this with historical injustices. So he focuses on that point as well. So he mentioned several factors like high interest rates to African countries because the international financial architecture is against African interest. He was mentioning that as one cause. So he focuses on enhancing Africa free trade area. He mentioned his experience while he was working as a high representative of African infrastructure within the AU structure. He mentioned two important barriers from his experience for that negatively contributes for the Africa free trade area. One is the infrastructure. He mentioned several African countries are poorly integrated in terms of infrastructure, so working in that area is one priority, according to Odinga. And another is there are some regulatory barriers within African countries, so working around that regulatory frameworks is also an important focus area he mentioned in terms of enhancing the continental Africa free trade area. Another candidate from Djibouti also talks about the Africa free continental trade area, but he basically underlines African wealth starts from its population. So ensuring quality education is the primary driver of African economic growth. So he underlined on that point a lot. From Madagascar, he also mentioned about the trade area, and he vows to boost African trade as well. So generally, all the three candidates underline the intra-Africa trade has to grow much better. They actually mentioned some figures. Presently, intra-Africa trade is around 15%. They compared it with Asia and Europe, which presently stands around 50%. So Africa has to do a lot in terms of boosting intra-Africa trade. They mentioned this point. In terms of peace and security, especially Africa representation within the UN Security Council, Odinga was very clear and loud. Africa must have representation. Not only representation, Africa must have representation with a permanent representation within the UN security and peace architecture. Africa, he demands 2 permanent seats for that. So he mentioned a lot of points around that. The Djibouti candidate accentuates on empowering Africa Peace and Security Council. Most of the problems are emanating because many African governments are not loyal to peace and security issues within their country. So they raised actually a lot of points that touched a number of sectors. I'm sure we will have much analysis and insight in the coming days with experts and with various experts in the line. So for now, these are some of the things that really attract my attention, Hikma. I think we'll have more further details with experts as well.
Well, thank you so much, Demis, for your detailed briefing regarding the African Union Chairperson Candidates Debate. And thank you so much once again. So we are on the verge of conclusion of our live transmission here from the studio regarding this grand event. And we stayed with you discussing several topics regarding what are the expectations and what was the debate about and what are the topics that was raised by these candidates. So I hope you guys enjoyed this live transmission, and then thank you so much for staying tuned in. I was Hikma Tamal with my colleagues as well as our guest, Dr. Saifa Tadala, right? A senior analyst at the University of Johannesburg. So thank you so much for staying with us and for staying tuned in to EBC. Goodbye.
እናመሰግናለን። እንግዲህ የተወደዳችሁ እነሆ ታላቁን ሁነት የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን በመቀመጫው በአዲስ አበባ መቀመጫነቱን ያደረገው የአፍሪካ ህብረት የመጨረሻ የአፍሪካ ህብረት የኮሚሽን ሊቀመንበር የሶስት እጩዎች ምርጫ ፉክክር በቀጥታ ስርጭት ሲያስተላልፍላችሁ ቆይቷል። እንግዲህ ከቀኑ 11 ሰዓት ጀምሮ እስካሁኑ ሰዓት ድረስ የተለያዩ መረጃዎችንና ትንተናዎችን እየሰጠን አብረናችሁ የቆየነው ዶክተር ሰይፈ ታደለ ኪዳኔ በጆሃንስበርግ ዩኒቨርሲቲ የዓለም አቀፍ ፖለቲካና ኢኮኖሚ ከፍተኛ ተመራማሪው ባልደረባዬ ሂክማ ተማም ያው ኢቢሲ በተለያዩ ቋንቋዎች እያስተላለፈና ያለው ዜና ፕሮግራሞችን ይሄን ትልቁን ሁነት ደግሞ በእንግሊዘኛ ቋንቋ ከእንግዳችን ጋር ስለቆየች ባልደረባዬ ሮዛ መኮንንና እኔ ሰለሞን ኃይለ ኢየሱስ አብረናችሁ ዘልቀናል። የኢትዮጵያ ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን በእርግጥም የአፍሪካውያን ድምጽ ሆኖ የቀጠለበትንና ከታላቁ ወይ ካንጋፋው የኢትዮጵያ ብሔራዊ ሬዲዮ ተረክቦ እስካሁኑ ሰዓት ድረስ አሁንም የአፍሪካ ህብረት ወይ የህብረቱ አባል ሀገራት ድምጽ መሆኑን ያሳየበት ግዙፉ የቀጥታ ስርጭታችን ይህንን ይመስል ነበር። ስለተከታተላችሁ እናመሰግናለን። በእያላችሁበት ሰናይ ጊዜ ይሁን።
የናሬሽን ፓወር ጅማሮ ደግሞ የኢቢሲን ብንወስድ ከ4-5 ዓመት በኋላ ኢቢሲ የአፍሪካን ወሬ የሚያወራ ነው የሚሆነው። ኢቲቪም በአፍሪካ ብዙዎቹ ነፃ ሳይወጡ የነበረ ተቋም ነው። ይህ ተቋም በሚመጥነው ልክ ቢደራጅ በቴክኖሎጂ በተፈጥሮ በመልክዓ ምድር በሰው ኃይል ቢደራጅ የኢትዮጵያን ናሬሽን በአፍሪካ ደረጃ ለመገንባት ይችላል። ከፍ ብለው ወጥተን በአፍሪካ ደረጃ አንደኛ የሰው ልጅ መገኛ መሆናችንን ከ6000 በላይ ኢንዲጂነስ ያለበት ሀገር መሆኑን ተራራም ከፍታ ቦታም ዝቅታ ቦታም ያለበት ቦታ መሆኑን ቢያንስ ለሁሉም ጎረቤት ሀገር ለሁሉም ንጹህ ውሃ የምትሰጥ ሰጪ ሀገር መሆኗን ለኤርትራ ተከዜን ለሱዳን ተከዜን ለሱዳን አባይን ለግብጽ አባይን ለኬንያ ኦሞን ዋቢ ሸበሌን ለሶማሌ ለጅቡቲ እንኳን ቢቸግረን በፓይፕላይን ውሃ እንሰጣለን ለሁሉ የምንሰጥ ደጋግ ህዝቦች መሆናችንን ኢቲቪ መግለጥ አለበት እኛ ተቀባይ አይደለም ሰጪ ነን በብዙ ነገር ብዙ የሚነገር ታሪክ አለን ብዙ የሚታይ ቦታ አለን ይሄንን በትክክል መስራት ስለሚጠበቅበትና ተቋሙ ያንን መምሰል ስላለበት አሁን እንደምታየው በጣም ሰፊ ስቱዲዮ 10 ስቱዲዮ ያለው ሰፊ ኮምፓውንድ ያለው የሚያምር ቦታ ብትጎበኘው ብታየው ማይጠገብ ቦታ የእናንተን ብቃት ጎልጉሎ ማውጣት የሚያስችል ቴክኖሎጂ ነው ያለው እኔ በግል የምጠብቀው ነገር ኢቲቪ ኢትዮጵያን በአፍሪካ ደረጃ ቦታዋን እንድትይዝ የሚያደርግ ሚዲያ መሆን አለበት ፈጣን መሆን አለበት አጫጭር መሆን አለባቸው የሚተላለፉት ዘገባዎች ሳቢ መሆን አለባቸው ይሄን ለማድረግ የእናንተን ልምድና የወጣቱን ደግሞ ቴክኖሎጂካል አቅም በመጠቀም በአፍሪካ ኮምፒተንት ተቋም ይሆናል ያስባለሁ እኔ ምን መሰለ የኔ ትዝብትና ምልከታ ህንድ ኢኮኖሚዋ እያደገ ሲመጣ ተቋሞቿ መታየት ጀመሩ መከላከያዎቿ ከመግዛት ወደ መሸጥ ሚዲያዎቿ ከማድመጥ ወደ መናገር እየተቀየሩ ሄዱ ቻይናን ብትወስድ የዛሬ 30 ዓመት ያልነበረ ነው አሁን የምታየው ሚዲያዎቻቸው ተቋሞቻቸው በሌሎች ሀገራት ይታያል ይሄ ነገር በእኛም እየመጣ ነው